What's up, everybody? Welcome to GameFace, episode 389 on Sifted Games at sifted.net, what I believe is the world's very best video game podcast. Alongside me to make sure that that happens is Matt Keil. What's up, Matt? Little convo about Furiosa here before the show kicked off. You got to go see it. Mm-hmm. I saw that there was like some crazy 7-minute like standing ovation for it. And it's just funny how...
but Dial of Destiny got a standing ovation, too. So don't let that fool you into thinking the movie's good.
It's just funny how the internet works. I'm like a casual movie guy, and you can see what reached me, right? It's like, I just got this 7-minute standing ovation for Furiosa, and so I think to myself, oh, it's probably pretty good. It's probably going to do really well. And what's your
those two
opinion
things have nothing to do with each
other?
other.
You're right.
Two Transformers movies made $1 billion. Its quality has nothing to do.
That's true.
Catching on with the mainstream audience does not mean. I mean, you tell me something that happened in Avatar 2.
Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah. I mean,
$2 billion.
I can remember some stuff, but...
Oh, sure. But, like, what was the name of the whale?
Not as much as
what was the name of the space whale?
Yeah, I don't remember.
What was the name of any of their children?
Don't remember.
No. Yeah. Nothing stuck because it's just a fucking theme park.
Yeah, I just let it wash over me, those movies. Yeah.
Right. Well, it's very easy to do that when it's all water as well. I mean, they're technically amazing. I mean, same with the Revenge of the Fallen and Dark of the Moon. ILM gave 110% every time.
Yeah.
Furiosa is really good. I liked it a lot. It's not as good as Fury Road, but Fury Road is one of the greatest action films of all time.
Yeah, it's incredible.
So, falling short of Fury Road is not really a big criticism.
Yeah.
It's very different from Fury Road. I think it's a very good companion piece. Like, I don't know if I'll ever watch them apart again. Like, watching Furiosa and then jumping into Fury Road is going to be a really perfect way to run that story.
I didn't realize Furiosa is a prequel.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that.
It's about how she got to where she was.
Gotcha. Okay.
And you get a lot of insight into how Immortan Joe and all those things work. And
where is Immortan Joe? Is he in chat?
And
he probably is.
You get a couple extra dimensions added to that. You understand that a little better, I think. Because one of the big questions I think you have if you're thinking about Furiosa as you leave Fury Road is like, well, why was she so highly ranked in his organization if she hated him, wanted to get away, and women were just used as chattel, right? So why was she driving the war rig? And this movie explains that.
Oh, okay.
And it's very good. It's very good. Very clever stuff. They have the younger girl who plays her, like they digitally sort of age her up and slowly morph her features digitally into Anya Taylor-Joy's so when it switches to Anya Taylor-Joy, which is much later in the movie than you think it is, there's no different. Like you don't notice that you've switched to Anya Taylor-Joy.
That's pretty cool.
And Chris Hemsworth's a lot of fun. He's a very different villain. Dementis. There's a ton of stuff from the 2015 video game in it. Not because they're referencing the game or that the game is canon or anything, but because they're working from the same backstory.
Worked out that way.
So Scrotus, one of Immortan Joe's sons, he's the main bad guy in the video game.
Oh,
and he's in the movie. Chumbucket, the guy who like rides in the back of Max's car through the whole game, he's in the movie.
Oh,
the Max's shotgun that he loses at the beginning of the game, that shows up in the movie. What was the other thing? Dementis, Chris Hemsworth character, he's mentioned in the game several times. Like he's in Scrotus's bio, it says that he beat this warlord Dementis, and that's why he was given control of Gastown. And like that is in fact in the game. It mentions the Wasteland War, which is in this movie. Like it's. And so, if you want to force, you want to force a 2015 Mad Max game into canon somehow, which it doesn't really work. It happens after Furiosa and before Fury Road. And like I think at one point you visit the quote unquote grave of Dementis and where the big war happened and stuff in the game. Like there's a bunch of, and I'm sure that's just because Miller wrote the backstory and a script for Furiosa before in 2012. Like this all existed. He's had 4 scripts written for these things since 2012.
Wow.
He's ready to go with another. I don't think he'll get another one because the box office isn't so good.
Yeah.
Although this got reviewed and received so well that maybe he would from someone. I mean, you never know what Warner Brothers might not exist next week. Who knows what these people are doing. But the next one's supposed to be a Mad Max movie called The Wasteland, which is a year before Fury Road and explains what he's doing out there and why, which might actually just be a retelling of the story from the game.
Right.
Because that is kind of what happens there.
Yeah.
But yeah, Furiosa is very good. It's a little long, I think. It's a little longer than it needs to be. But that's kind of true of everything.
It does feel that way anymore.
Like Planet of the Apes was a little too long, I thought.
Yeah.
Although it didn't feel as long as War for Planet of the Apes did. Fall Guy was too long. Like, it just... 20 minutes. Cut 20 minutes out. You can get 20 minutes out of there. Whatever movie you are, unless you're a short film, then maybe you can have 20 minutes of it, because then the movie's 20 minutes. But I really liked it.
People should go see it.
Yeah, I'll definitely go see it. It's a big screen movie. If you can see it in IMAX, obviously do that. Anya Taylor-Joy is very good in it. Hemsworth is great in it. Hemsworth is in it, like, talking a lot more than she is. She has like 30 lines in the whole movie. Because the movie's not a lot of dialogue. Like Miller believes dialogue slows the movie down, and you got to drive.
In some ways he's right.
Yeah, just like Fury Road. Like, if the cars talk for the characters.
Yeah.
Like the engines are the voices in that.
Right. Yeah.
And also, it's very interesting to me how George Miller really seems to believe that public address systems are going to be a very important technology in a post-apocalypse. There's tons of people just talking through microphones at each other across long distances.
That's hilarious.
And I'm like, I guess. Yeah. It is also, and this is funny, it is also the first time any of these movies have really confirmed it takes place in Australia.
Oh.
Because at the very beginning, it zooms in on the globe. Like,
and they show
on Australia. So, okay, it actually is in Australia. Okay,
I think most people guessed.
Probably, yeah, we assumed, but and I did see an Australian person who was complaining about it. I thought it was funny that he said he's a Chris Hemsworth's Australian accent in this movie is so inconsistent. I keep forgetting he's actually Australian.
That is funny.
And it's just like someone's been doing his American too long.
Yeah, seriously, he's trained himself out of it.
Yeah.
Pretty interesting. Well, there you go. There's Matt's quick review of Furiosa. Maybe some of you guys have already checked it out in theaters. We had our long weekend here in America. It was Memorial Day weekend, so we had the day off yesterday. Most people did anyway. Hope you guys had, if you're Americans, you had a good holiday weekend. Maybe some barbecues, a couple beers here and there. Maybe you play some awesome video games. We definitely have been. We have a great show for you guys today. This week's show's going to be good. Next week's show's going to be good. Then we're into E3, not E3. We talked about that last week. It's going to be myself, Marcus, and Michael Pachter handling our not E3 coverage while Matt is away doing some personal stuff. So we're primed for some great stuff coming up here over the next week and a half, 2 weeks. And then obviously when Matt gets back, we'll still talk about all the stuff with him to get his take on it. So we are kind of in the prime time for video game podcasts right now. And we have a good one for you guys today. Let's check out what you guys are saying in our chat. Thank anybody who gave us Twitch Prime because it's very important to us. Talimper, thank you for Twitch Prime. Solanito, I think that's how you say that. Thank you for Twitch Prime. 8 months, thank you. We got any others here? I don't think so. Again, we're kind of at the end of the month, so a lot of you guys have already subscribed. Manny DR1, Matt going to the movies is expensive. It seems more and more people are just used to waiting a couple of weeks and waiting for them to come to streaming.
Stuff does come to streaming very fast now.
Yeah.
And you get a lot of arguing about the expensive part. I think it's expensive because the tickets here are like $17. You go to a big IMAX thing, sometimes they're over $20. It cost me $33 to see Avatar 2 in IMAX when it came out. That's crazy.
It is crazy.
But then you say that online, and then people are just like, well, it's only $10 where I am. It's like, I don't know what kind of
where are you living?
Podunk Forest Theater you're going to, but like
they're going to that drive-through that I went to, the drive-in that I went to see The Man Who Fell to Earth.
I haven't paid $10. I mean, I'll actually so every once in a while you get not Focus, but like a Fathom event, and like the tickets are $5.
Yeah.
But like a first
run movie, or is it like 8 a.m?
Yeah, but a first run movie, like even matinee prices are $12.
Yeah. Mike's Q says, I have no problem with these movies not really having anything to do with Max, but is there any other way to name these movies without Max in the title? It's a little deceptive, I guess.
I assure you that Miller wanted to call it just Furiosa, but Warner Brothers forced it to be called a Mad Max tale.
Yeah.
That happens a lot, in part because of SEO.
Yeah.
Like, things can't be named good things anymore because they have to be searchable.
Well, it's like if you look at game titles on the internet, like Hellblade 2, even though Ninja Theory wanted it to be 2 eyes, the internet and websites were like, nope, we're not doing it. We're using a number 2. And they do that with pretty much every game. You guys may have noticed I am a stickler about that on Sifted, maybe to the site's SEO detriment, but I make sure that we use the title as the developer or the publisher has published it instead of going for SEO juice like a lot of the other websites. So Hellblade 2 on our website is Hellblade II. David5807, thank you for Twitch Prime. El Hugo, I think that's a clever way to write El Hugo. Thank you for Twitch Prime. Faradol says, my area seems to think 3 p.m. on Thursday counts as midnight. So I see all the movies for $9. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That works out. Eric Cartmena says on Tuesdays it's $5 at Cinemark. Yeah, not here.
Yeah, we don't have that here.
Yeah, I mean, it is very much like territorial pricing, which is a little odd, really. Patrick has floated the idea of selling seats for higher prices. Like if you sit in the middle back, like you pay a little more than the person.
Oh, AMC tried to do that and everybody revolted.
Oh, really?
It's a horrible idea.
What happened that it didn't work?
Because they wanted to raise the prices of everything but the shitty seats.
Oh, I see.
Like that doesn't fly.
Yeah.
That's not gonna fly. And also
they didn't want to make the crappy seats cheaper.
Yeah, all that's gonna be is like either everyone takes the shitty seats for cheaper, or everyone pays the normal. If you make the shitty seats cheaper and make the good seats the normal price, people just pay the normal price to sit in the good seats, and you won't sell the other ones because no one wants to sit in the bad seats.
You're right. It's kind of a lose-lose proposition.
Yeah, it's not a concert.
Yeah, there's no good way to do it.
Like there's no like you'll force me into a less than ideal seat at a concert or a live performance because there's only so many of those going to happen. Like,
but you can go see that movie.
Yeah, I'm going to see that movie anytime.
Yeah.
Like
that
doesn't make any sense.
That's an important distinction. Yeah. The
access. That is a remove from reality idea.
Yeah.
And AMC tried that a couple years ago, floated the idea, and they killed it before it was even implemented because people thought it was so stupid.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. Oh yeah, Manny Doctor One says they tried it. He says they tried it in New York City, and just boom.
Get Up Kid 1284. Thank you for Twitch Prime.
And then Vincent also has a good point. Then you have to spend money policing the seating.
Yeah,
like it's no
you're right, because people will be like sitting in the seats they're not supposed to, and yeah. My excuse says, "Shut your damn mouth, Shane."
Yeah, the streaming thing is probably a big problem. Is just like when something doesn't do super well. Fall Guy's already on digital.
I know, I saw that.
Like in 2 weeks.
I saw that.
It's really stupid. And some of it, I mean, a lot of that's just everybody rushed to do the streaming thing. All these studios were convinced that streaming was the next big thing. And they're like, we can own our own TV broadcast, basically. And it didn't work. There's no revenue stream because it was another grift from the tech side of everything. See also AI.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how an entire industry of salesmen managed to rebrand linear algebra as artificial intelligence, but I wonder what we'll call actual artificial intelligence if it comes along because you've poisoned the term. Because now everything is streaming, we got all these streaming services that cost more to maintain than they do to actually. We don't get any revenue that makes up for it, and now we're dumping our movies on them, and now our revenue stream from the theaters is drying up because everybody got used to watching them at home and they think they're going to come immediately. More movies need to do the Godzilla -1 thing and just take months and months,
Yeah.
Like that was the original.
That will convince people to go to the theater.
Right. Well, that was the original idea behind rentals. Was like, back in the day,
they were afraid of
it. It took like a year before something came to rental, and then you had to wait 6 months for it to be purchasable because the rental copies were $100 or more.
Yeah.
And you had to wait for them to become
if you lost
price
the tape,
to own.
You had to pay the Blockbuster like $200 for that lost VHS tape.
Because that's how much they cost.
They paid for them, and
it's like and that's why back in the day, VHSs that were available for retail would be touted as price to own.
Right.
And it was a big deal if something came out straight to market price to own, like the Star Wars movies did that.
It wasn't even all that long ago.
No,
it's crazy how quickly stuff changes.
Like back in the day, like. In the 80s and the advent of the VCR, I mean, there was the industry tried to convince everyone that VCRs were just giant pirate machines, which nobody actually believed. But they were very careful about not devaluing the theatrical experience because they knew that's where their real money came from.
Yeah.
And all these and look, like the difference there is that even when you were selling, the home market wasn't all that attractive or lucrative to the studios because you were still paying people through distribution, and you had to pay for production, and you had to pay for the cut of the retail store that sells. There's a whole bunch of slices coming out just like from the box office.
Yeah.
And in this case, everybody thought, and streaming will own everything, and we'll cut out all the middlemen, and we'll make all the money. It's like, well, it turns out there's no money because no one's paying individually for each movie. They just pay $15 a month, and they see a lot more movies than $15 a month would pay for in a theater.
Yeah.
That's the other reason. It's like why would I go deal with theater people And believe me, I get that. Like, the theater is very important to me. Seeing movies in the theater is the closest I get to going to church.
Yeah.
And I put up with a bunch of dumb shits at these movies, up to and including the guy 2 seats over at Indiana Jones, The Dial of Destiny, who was rooting for the Nazis. And almost this, like, 50-something guy on the other side of him almost beat the shit out of him at the end of the movie because of it. It was amazing.
Wow.
But like I have seen, and everyone has to keep looking at their fucking Apple Watches the whole time, and all this.
Because they can't miss a text, and they can't miss somebody liking one of their tweets. No, it's so sad.
Well, I mean, you see that at what was I can't remember. It was a movie earlier this year. I can't remember what it was, but it was this girl who like took all these Instagram pictures because Chinese theater puts up a big graphic on this curtain before it starts. It's kind of cool. People take pictures of it. It's just like stay there. She took a picture of herself in front of it, like that. And then she was like posting it and stuff. And then after the movie, she kept pulling her phone out. And eventually, I'm just looking.
People were liking.
She was looking to see how many likes she was getting on the fucking picture of her being at the movie she was supposed to be watching.
It's funny. My wife and I, we were watching television over the weekend, and there was something that came on the TV talking about an iPod.
Yeah.
And how we just realized like how they're obsolete and they're ancient now. And this was old footage. Like, and the guy's like, I just got my new iPod. And we were like, wow, like what is this? What year is this from? Like 2009. Like it's crazy how quickly things are being like discarded and just becoming yesterday's news. Like it used to take way longer for stuff like that to evolve and go away. Like it's just crazy. Like my car still works with an iPod.
Yeah, you forget how long it took for smartphones to really catch on.
Yeah, it's really nuts.
It was like the iPhone was 2008, or like beginning of 2008. I remember that because of what desk I was sitting at across from Blair Herter, because he was obsessed with getting one launch day. And he got one. Yeah. He got an iPhone 1 and a Mustang right around the same time. It's like, you are making some choices,
you are
sir.
rolling.
But like, it took several years for everybody to have a smart. I don't think it was 2011 before I got one. I think
later even. Yeah,
because you don't get that shit. I'm not here to beta test your stuff.
Right. Yeah. Things are moving fast, people. I wish the video game industry moved as fast as some of the other industries. I feel like as far as
it probably should.
Yeah.
Like, it does need to be more agile. I think that's part of its problem.
I agree. Sleeping Turtle 3, thank you for Twitch Prime. But we do have we have a huge housekeeping today, by the way. We're going to talk about Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door, the Switch, and I have now figured out that I've played it, whether it's actually a remaster or a remake. We'll talk about that. We're going to talk about Ubisoft's brand new Call of Duty killer, xDefiant. We're going to talk about Homeworld 3. We're going to talk about this really, really cool indie game that I've been playing as our New York Seeker Society Sneaker of the Week. We have a great show for you guys. Before we get into it, just a couple things. One, we are supported 100% by Patreon at patreon.com/SIFTD. That's SIFTD. For just $4 a month, you get all our content early. If you can't afford to help us, you can still help us with this show. You can like this show. You can comment on this show. If you're watching this show on YouTube right now, I know I said this last week. Nobody did it, but I'm going to ask again. If you're watching this show on YouTube right now, like the show, leave a comment. Even if it's just like, love this show. Takes a second, makes a big difference for us in the algorithm. We talk about Twitch Prime all the time. That's the way a lot of people help us who don't have a lot of extra cash. If you're an Amazon Prime subscriber, you can give us a free couple dollars every month just by subscribing at twitch.tv/SiftedGames. Again, if you're watching on YouTube, step-by-step instructions for that are down below. Our patrons already know how to do that stuff. All that stuff helps. And again, if you haven't subscribed with Twitch Prime for a long time, please do it now. Our numbers are way, way down there over the last couple months, and we do rely on that money to keep creating GameFace. And with that, I think we're ready to get on with housekeeping. And again, we have a lot of it in this week's episode. A lot of smaller-ish stories breaking this week. The first one we're going to discuss is Neil Druckmann. A lot of people consider Neil Druckmann to be one of the luminaries in the industry. You may disagree with that. Totally respect your opinion on that. But a lot of people do consider him at this point to be one of the better developers in the industry. And so when he says stuff, people pay attention. They care. And Matt, one of the things that he said this week, he was talking about his new game, basically. So Sony, we're going to talk about something else Sony did related to this. But for whatever reason, Sony this week is on this like future kick, where it went to...
Because they got nothing else to do.
I guess. It went to all its different departments and was like, hey, what do you think your vision for the future is? Mm-hmm. And for the game stuff, they did an interview with Neil Druckmann, which that's great because a lot of the press don't get a chance to talk to Neil Druckmann that often. And as it turns out, one of his quotes ended up being a little misinterpreted by Sony, which is a little weird.
Yeah, he didn't actually say this, which is the
weird.
He
did actually.
Not in this wording. They changed this. He never said redefine mainstream perceptions of gaming.
Well, he changed the verbiage to it.
Sony did.
Well, even his change, I was like, I don't understand what the big deal is, because still his statement was basically like, I don't know. His let me see if I have it here. It was nuanced dialogue and character. He was basically talking about AI. Mm-hmm. And he was saying how he thinks AI can make a big difference for him in game development and other developers. And his exact quote was that AI can be used to create nuanced dialogues and characters. And then he goes on to entertain the idea that
Disagree.
Yeah. Then he goes on to entertain the idea that AI can be used to write dialogue. And then he does mention the ethical issues of that, but he basically says, like, this is something that we're looking into doing.
Well, don't.
Yeah.
Like, ethical issues aside, which should be obvious and horrific, no, AI cannot write useful dialogue. AI doesn't have thoughts in its head. AI doesn't understand why people say what they say. AI can't identify a hexagon. AI thinks the Beatles wrote a song called "It's Okay to Leave Your Dog in a Hot Car."
Yeah.
Like, it has no concept of anything. Like, the idea of, I mean, even having it do just random NPC chatter doesn't make any sense. Like why? Because you're just gonna have to pay someone
to
fix it.
Yeah, you're right.
Like, it's so stupid.
You can't trust it. I agree. I don't know what he's talking about here.
I don't know.
He basically is hinting
like some
that
of the
you can save a lot of money using AI.
I'm gonna bet you can't.
I don't think you can either. I think you're
not
right.
on that.
You're gonna have the AI police.
And you're talking about, AI stuff that can help you build procedural world. Like, yeah, but we already do that. You're just calling it AI now.
Yeah.
Like,
you've been using, like, quote unquote AI.
Technically,
to
the loop tool on Photoshop is AI by the definition of what we call AI now.
Yep.
Like, it's just stupid.
And then he also talked about some of the other things that might eliminate jobs from game development. Quote, the ability to do motion capture right from home. We're reducing both costs and technical hurdles, opening the door for us to take on more adventurous projects and push the boundaries of storytelling in games. This evolution is truly empowering creators to bring their visions to life without the traditional obstacles.
Who's got a mocap set up at home? What is he talking about?
I think he's saying that, like, with these new AI programs, and I did see a little bit about this from, I believe it was Unreal Engine, where they're using AI to animate faces, first of all, just using the dialogue. But then they're also basically using it to do what he said, like, to help, like, figure out, like, what the motions are, and then it's like a copy and paste job. You're like, I just apply that motion to that character. But, I mean, if you think about it, if you're him, when he makes a game, he lives in the mocap studio for, like, a good almost year working on performances. So from his perspective, he's probably looking at it like, I don't have to do that anymore? Hallelujah.
But it's weird because he's such a control freak that you think you want real control. And you're not going to have real control over AI like that. You can't tell AI, no, more like this. Because you have to come up with, and I know that AI grifters will say that, like, well, that's why you need skilled prompters.
Right.
It's just like,
people who know what to ask the AI.
Like, what the fuck does that even mean?
Now it's a job, apparently.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Like, what would be easier? Just telling an actor what you want and having them do it.
Yeah.
In the mocap studio that you spent millions of dollars to build in your game development studio.
It's true.
It's another solution without a problem.
The bigger question here is, how alarming is it for you to hear something like this coming from someone like Neil Druckmann? Again, who a lot of people consider to be an auteur and someone who's driving game development in
not at all, really.
Yeah.
Because a lot of it's him applying the buzzword AI to things that are old and have already been used in various forms for years and honestly are not AI. And the other part of it is probably him just sort of encouraging the whole thing that, like, he knows who he serves.
Yeah.
And those people want to hear comments like that.
He found that out whenever they misquoted him in the article.
They changed a little bit of what he said to even match their weirdest fantasies of how this is going to work out.
That's what happened, yeah.
Like,
I know Sony.
Because the execs
looking to pinch the budgets on these games.
The C-suite dreams of a world where you just need a Neil Druckmann and a guy with a word prompt, and they just make Last of Us 3.
Where you just type in, make a game about a guy and a girl traveling across the country to
and
surviving
boom,
zombies.
It just shits out Last of Us.
And then it just makes The Last of Us. That's what they dream of.
That's what they want. When that's what the tech bros have sold them. But it's like, I mean, my analogy, and I argue with some of my friends up back in the Bay Area who are, some of them are involved in stuff like this. Some of them are just sort of tech adjacent, and we have this conversation because they're in that bubble a little more.
Yeah.
And the analogy that I actually got some traction with on a couple of them was like, it's a magic trick. It's like when you go into that office, when you go into that presentation, and let's say your magic trick is teleportation. You can show them the way you've designed your trick. You can show them what really, really convincingly looks like teleportation, and they'll all freak out and think it's really cool. And then they'll say, "We want to give you money to have that teleportation trick in our company, to make it part of our business," and you'll take that money because that's what you wanted. The whole point was to make money off this thing you've built and shown this way. But at some point, that business is going to ask you to teleport their product from the factory in China to the port of Long Beach. And now what do you do? Yeah. Because your thing can't do that.
Right.
You just made them think it could.
Because it's a magic trick.
And that's what AI is in terms of what it's being sold to companies to do right now.
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
And I haven't had a very good answer to that, other than people who actually believe that ChatGPT is thinking when you're not talking to it, which is not true. It's an equation.
It sits there and waits. Yeah.
It's linear algebra. That's all it is. There's nothing thinking in there. It's just, if you mash together enough like random snippets of things from the internet, our brains can't do that effectively, so we just sort of think it's original. And so that's what that's how the images work too.
Yeah, I mean, it's nothing without putting something into it.
And now you're going to hit a point where all its input, all it's scraping from the internet is other AI stuff, and it's just going to
fold in on itself.
It's just going to turn into like the equivalent of that inbred family in the X-Files, where like nobody had any arms and they kept the mother under the bed. That's what AI's end game is.
No, you're right. Yeah.
So let's not do this, Neil.
Yeah.
And the problem is that's inevitable. Like, it's going to turn out that this AI thing is basically useful for like prototyping, concept arting, like getting an idea of things, and then you'll need people
scrambled together.
You'll need people to hone it to hone it and to sculpt it and to make it into something that a human being would actually want to expose themselves to and pay for. Yeah. But in the interim, these executives and these money-hungry studios are just they're going to thousands of people. You're going to waste a lot of money, and they're going to waste a lot of people's lives. They're going to throw people's jobs away.
And then they're going to need to hire them back.
And then they're going to be like, oh, we do need people to do this stuff because this shit was a fucking grift, just like how none of us own NFTs right now, right? Yeah. Like, because anyone who's pushing AI online, go look at their post timelines. You will find NFTs.
They were a crypto bro
100%.
First. Yeah, 100%.
It's and last I checked, I'm still using paper money, and the ape NFTs are not paying for anyone's college education. So this is just the same thing again. Yeah. But the terrible thing is, like, you were pitching a lot of crypto and NFT stuff to people who knew better, like nerds online. There was almost an element of the front line of defense on that was like other nerds who were like, nah, it's not what that is. Like people, but now they've taken this AI thing directly to the biggest dumbasses in the world, corporate executives. Yeah. We all know that. We all know these people don't understand how anything works. Like, all right there with politicians, where like Mitt Romney didn't understand how a fucking checkout counter worked back in that election. You remember that?
Yeah, that's right.
It's that like that. When was the last time you think Zaslav shopped at a Ralph's?
Never.
I mean, I know it's a cliche, but that thing from Arrested Development, it's one banana, Michael. How much could it cost? $10? Like, she hasn't bought food for herself.
She doesn't know.
In 40 years. Yeah. Like, that's the joke there, and that's what's happening here. Like, they don't have enough like real world hands-on experience.
They haven't made games,
right?
They're just executives.
Well, I'm just talking about the world in they don't have enough sense in their heads to understand that that what they're being sold does not and cannot exist, because if it did, we'd have created sentience,
right?
Like,
which would be like a miracle.
Which would be that would be more important than something that you can save time on a game script for.
We wouldn't be talking about game strips.
Also,
sure,
the AI would probably be demanding to be paid as well.
Yes. Yeah, you're right. That's a good point. If they're sentient. Yeah.
Yeah. ChatGPT is going to want some compensation if it ever starts to have its own thoughts, I assure you.
Yeah. So Neil did get some pushback on this, which prompted him then to issue this statement saying that he was a little bit misrepresented, blah, blah, blah. However, to me, maybe the more important part of this whole interview was he did let a couple things slip about their new fantasy game that they're working on at Naughty Dog. Here's a couple quotes that he shared. Maybe the most excited I've been for a project yet. That was one of his quotes. It's something really, really fresh for us. I'm excited to see how the world reacts to it. So my guess is whatever it is, it's a gigantic departure from The Last of Us or Uncharted. I wonder how far back we can go.
That's really
to
hard.
say it doesn't make sense for Naughty Dog.
That's a really hard thing to believe.
Because if you go way back, they were making Jack and Daxter and all this other stuff. Like, so what is a departure for Naughty Dog at this point? I don't know. Yeah. Little intrigue at least.
Guess like an open world
Maybe.
RPG, like a Fable kind of thing. Maybe?
I mean, that's kind of what I think a lot of people are assuming they're making anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I think most people are assuming it's going to be a linear walk and talk fantasy
really?
game. Yeah, I think people just assuming it's The Last of Us with swords.
I would hope that they would expand their design dock a little bit.
You would hope, but also...
Yeah. But also...
You didn't just get here.
It doesn't necessarily mean they'll sell more of them. So.
No, I mean, look, Last of Us and Uncharted do share a lot of DNA. So really, anything that just doesn't require a series of small walls to hide behind would be a breaking of the paradigm.
No, you're right.
Could be anything.
Yeah. So anyway, that's the latest on Neil Druckmann and AI and game development. Important person to listen to about anything related to game development.
Maybe it's like a really exciting, like high fantasy, like positive thing, and everything's super bright and exciting.
That's really what I thought.
Which would be very different from anything they've done in a long time.
That's the only thing I could think of. Is it's like this
like
crazy...
the tone is very different?
Yeah, the tone is like not deathly serious. It's fun. It's like...
That would be the biggest contrast of anything they could do, I would think.
Exactly. That's how I think. So anyway, that's the latest on Naughty Dog's next game and what Neil Druckmann thinks about using AI in game development. Next up.
And what he thinks about Sony's interpretation of what he says.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I mean, what a bizarre situation to be in, where you're like, oh, my own employer kind of lied about what I said.
I mean, that's the kind of stuff that gets developers out. That's what makes them want to quit and either go somewhere else or just quit.
Well, yeah, remember when I talked about how he probably wants to go direct movies or TV shows? Like, if
this
three guesses why.
Yeah. This will push him out.
I mean, if they did this to him publicly, just thoughtlessly like that, imagine what they do internally.
No, you're right. Yep. Next up, we talked to you guys last week about the new Doom and how it's going to be unveiled here in the next week or so at the big Xbox Not E3 press conference. And there were rumors floating last week that it was going to be basically a prequel to the Doom series called Doom Year Zero. Well, Insider Gaming, once again, a very reliable source for leaks in the games industry, just reported this week that it is not called Doom Year Zero. It instead is called... It instead is a game that's set in medieval times.
Wow.
Which I still think
who knew Portal to Hell technology from Mars was so advanced in the medieval times?
Yeah. Well, there's
some wizards fucking around. I guarantee that's got to be what happened.
There's an indie game right now where literally you get on a motorcycle with a machine gun and mow down people in medieval times. I can't remember the name of it.
I have that on my wish list. I can't remember what it's called either.
It's insane.
But it's like, it's like you get zapped back in time and you can like drive your car. It's like, but it looks like Total War or like actually it's really looks really cool.
It looks crazy.
And it's like one guy and he just like went on Twitter. He's like, hey, please wish list my thing because we worked really hard on it. And it's like,
okay,
great. It's basically Army of Darkness, the game with no zombies, and I'm like, I'm into it.
And that's kind of.
I can't remember what. If you scroll down, I'm sure somebody in the chat knows what that's called.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of sounds like that's what the next Doom is going to be. It sounds like it's going to be like this weird, like futuristic weapons and stuff in medieval times. Kingmakers. Yeah, that's what it is. Vincent shared that with us. Ethan on the Naughty Dog topic says Naughty Dog games are basically movies with subpar gameplay section. I don't know if I agree with that after the Last of Us Part 2.
Yeah, Last of Us Part 2 is not subpar gameplay. Last of Us 1 I would agree with.
Yeah, Last of Us Part 2 had great gameplay. Go and watch, go on YouTube and search for high-level Last of Us Part 2 gameplay. And you'll find people who have played the living tar out of that game, and it's like they're playing another game. It's a lot like Doom.
And like it's like, oh, well, you don't need to do that. It's like, look, if the fucking dumbass 4,000 hit combos in Devil May Cry count as depth to gameplay, so does that.
Yeah.
You don't need to do either of those things to succeed in those games. It's just, but they're there, and you can do it. And honestly, the Last of Us 2 stuff looks really cool.
It's insane what you can do in The Last of Us Part 2.
Yeah, just
you know what you're doing.
Yeah, like you got to know all those things. You got to know what shooting what thing makes them flinch or doesn't flinch. I mean,
and all the timing of all of it. Yeah, there's deep stuff in there if you want to dig. And I'm sure like the QA testers who were working on that game can probably pull off some crazy stuff as well. It's deceptive. It seems shallow if you just play the game and try to get from one checkpoint to the next. If you really dig into the gameplay of The Last of Us Part 2, it's got some layers to that onion. So. I don't know that that's fair to say. But look, we're going to get a look at this Doom next Sunday at the Microsoft press conference. How do you feel about that? I think it could be fun.
Maybe. I mean, I'm curious if it's going to be more Doom 2016 or Doom Eternal.
Yeah, that was kind of our question last week, was which one is it going to lean towards?
Yeah, if it's leaning more into that sort of the classic Doom boomer shooter thing, then yeah, I'm probably in.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's not like, again, we're going Army of Darkness again. It's not like it's unprecedented to have demons running around in medieval times like that.
No, you're right. Or someone with a crazy gun.
Well, I mean, I'm sure the wizard accidentally summons the Doom guy as well.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's just like a stealth hexen.
That could be. Although stealth and Doom don't necessarily...
No, I mean stealth as in you're sneakily making a hexen
Gotcha. Not the literal form of stealth. Okay, gotcha. So anyway, again, we'll be learning more about that here in the next week or so. Just a little primer to let you know what to expect when we check out the new Doom.
Although I would imagine seeing what was the... Oh, I forgot the name already. That EA Originals Magic game that
first-person Magic game?
Yeah, that did not do wonderful.
It's on Game Pass now, actually.
Can't remember
it's
what it's
not
called.
Elysium, it's called...
Begins with an I.
Yeah. But you're right.
Immortals of Avium.
Immortals of Avium, yeah. But again, a very forgettable title.
Yes, bad title.
Yeah.
Very bad title.
But you know what? EA let that studio basically keep all the money the game made. And they did some layoffs, but didn't fold the studio. And I think that's smart, because that studio showed that it can make a high quality
there's something
game.
there. I do. I mean, obviously, you probably aren't going to get a sequel to that game, but I feel like if they did do a sequel to that game, it would be something really special.
Yeah. So
they had the bones of something really good there.
Oddly enough, I think EA handled something correctly for once, man.
Yeah, who knows?
You knew it was possible. Again, that information about the next Doom comes from Insider Gaming. We always want to credit people who break news. Next up, Matt, another leak from Bill Kuhn. You may know him. He is also a prolific leaker. He shared this week that there is a new Astrobot game, and that's not it, coming. That's hilarious.
Went a different direction with this one, huh?
There's a new Astrobot game that is going to be announced here in the next few weeks. Again, we're assuming that it will be shown at the not E3 PlayStation presser, which could come way late in June. We still don't know Nintendo's Direct for June. It's definitely looking like it's not happening during not E3 week at this point. So looks like that's one that'll come a little bit later, and PlayStation's probably as well. Now you remember, this game was a free pack-in for PlayStation 5. It came installed on every single PlayStation 5. I'm guessing that is still the case. A pretty cool 3D platformer that was basically, it felt like it was made to show off the abilities of the DualSense controller.
Yeah, it's a classic day one game, really, in terms of kind of what you expect a day one game to be. It's like, here's a bunch of stuff it can do in this charming little game that you're probably not going to remember in a year.
Yeah.
But I did like it.
It was short. I mean, I finished it in a day, and I've moved on my way.
I think exploiting this character more is probably a smart idea.
Yeah, I enjoyed my time with this game. I also felt like it ended just in time. So I don't know if a full-fledged Astro game is going to be something that people are going to like.
I mean, I think you need to expand kind of the scope of it and what he can do and all. Really kind of Banjo-Kazooie it up a little bit. But there's something here. I mean, no one's doing platformers other than Nintendo.
Yeah.
So not on this scale. So yeah, there's something here.
And Studio Asobi, the studio that makes these, talented. You can just see from this B-roll that they have skill.
And it's just the character just has charm. You don't see that much anymore.
No, you're right.
Really.
Yeah, it seems like most people like Astrobot. So
yeah, he's probably the least controversial exclusive anything.
Yeah.
Right? It's like everybody, even if you don't love it, you're just like, no, that was cute.
I think your big X factor here is how will people, if they try to sell the game at a decent price, how people will react to that.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the $70 Astrobot game looks like.
Right. That's my question. As far as convincing people to spend the $70 on an Astrobot game, something they got for free when they bought their PS5.
Yeah, but even then, you have to plus that to a degree that, I mean, hopefully they're more looking at a $40 to $50 price tag.
Yeah, that would make more sense. So we'll see how they package it and decide to sell it and what it actually is. It is not. Oh, they already said it is not a PlayStation VR 2 game. Shocker.
Oh no, we know.
But the first Astrobot was one of the big games for PlayStation VR.
It was
1.
The demo, basically.
It was cool.
Yeah,
it was one of the first times I was like, PlayStation VR isn't that bad. And then
and then you ran to the bathroom.
That's right. and laid on the couch for 4 hours, wishing I could puke. So anyway, again, we'll be getting information on a new Astrobot game here in the very near future. Next up, and again, that information comes from Bill Kuhn. Matt, this week, the world's longest-running console war finally came to an end because Atari bought Intellivision.
The third or fourth iteration of Atari.
Yes, and the third or fourth iteration of Intellivision, I would add. It is crazy how this has all worked out in the end, that Atari bought Intellivision. What, now 40 or 50 years later, the industry's oldest console war finally comes to an end. And as of note, Matt, I should mention that...
Now's your chance, ColecoVision.
Exactly. That it did not decide to buy the Intellivision Amico part of the business.
No, they sort of brushed that off like a bunch of dirt that it collected on the
Much
brand.
to Tommy Tallarico's chagrin, they did not buy the Atari or the Intellivision Amico part of it. I think.
Why would you?
Yeah, I mean, here's my question, Matt.
You can't buy nothing.
Why would you buy Intellivision?
I don't know.
Because let's be honest, most of the games that run in television, like I think Atari 2600 games in a lot of cases have more longevity than Intellivision games.
Atari 2600 games, as someone who has been messing with retro pie stuff a lot, the Intellivision games are generally, in terms of just being games, generally better. I mean, it was later. It was more but the
expensive.
2600 has nostalgia on its side. Like, everyone remembers the 2600 version of everything. And I've even pulled up the Intellivision versions of things, as George Plimpton would have encouraged. And she said, look, how much better this is. Yeah, but it's not what I played when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And that's all that mattered. The other thing about Intellivision is because of that weird-ass controller, it's very hard to emulate a lot of them now.
That's what I was getting at.
Like, you don't have the control. You can't just put out an Intellivision, retro pack and not either have really awkward emulated controls in the game or expect people to have a specialized controller. It's
for those
tough.
of you who may not be old enough, the Intellivision controller had this gold disc for the D-pad that you use.
And like a big number key, like a keypad.
Like a number pad. And they had these inserts that would slide over top of it to tell you what each one of the buttons was for.
And to be fair, this was successful enough that the Atari 5200 ripped it off.
Right.
Like, it's not like this was like a weird, awkward thing nobody liked. It actually gave them a lot of versatility in what they could do.
But I think
as opposed to the Atari, which was one stick and one button.
Yeah. But I think that's why Atari 2600 games are still approachable. Because these Intellivision games, they were hard to control. Even if you had it in Intellivision, it took a while to get good at the games using that controller. So I think Atari 2600 games, one button, one stick, they're easy to understand, how to play, what to do. You start getting into the Intellivision stuff, and it's goofy controller, trying to emulate that's a problem.
Well, my favorite game on the Atari 5200 was a fairly complex space game that used every button on that giant controller, and I try to play it now, and I'm like, I don't know.
No, it's not worth it.
I don't remember any of
That's
this.
what I was getting at. Yeah, so I don't understand why Atari really bought Intellivision. I don't see there's a lot of value in that brand, but it probably didn't spend much for it anyway, so...
I don't know. Maybe whoever is in. I mean, do we know how much?
Price.
They don't know how much it was.
No, they may eventually release it, but
I mean, maybe the people who are running Atari just think it'd be cool.
Yeah,
it's like, maybe they're thinking the same thing you are with the console war finally over. We finally
I'm just surprised
won.
Atari can afford to buy anything.
Well, Atari's backed by some actual money at this point.
But
remember
why?
that because it's just another company that bought another brand.
Yeah,
remember the brand Atari has changed hands at least 4 times since they're not the original company at all. This isn't Nintendo. We've been around since the 1800s kind of thing. This is just somebody's been handing that brand over and over and over. And now I don't even remember who it was. I know they're pretty well funded though.
Yeah,
I know those Atari collections do fine.
It's made recently. It's made a couple other ones, so it does have some kind of money in its war chest. I don't know why or how, but
part of it is that 50th anniversary thing did very well, and it was the prototype for that Karateka making of game.
Yeah,
that was kind of almost a dry run for that style of presentation. It's very good.
Yeah.
if you can stomach those games anymore.
Yeah. But, you guys probably don't even remember this console war. Like, you guys are older, but you're not as old as Matt and I, and we lived through it. It was kind of crazy. But I didn't really view it as a console war back then, Matt. I was just like, now I want the Intellivision. And then now I want the ColecoVision. Because they were significant steps forward above what the Atari 2600 could do. I never looked at it like they were competing against each other. I'm like, when I can afford it, I'm going to step up to this better console.
Yeah, there was very little. I mean, among the consumers, it didn't seem to be a big like we only can have one.
Like
game
I didn't argue with
console.
my friends like over Intellivision versus ColecoVision.
Well, also because they were marketed more as appliances.
Yeah,
at the
it was
time.
also obvious.
They weren't toys.
Yeah, it's like ColecoVision, clear as day, arcade perfect. You could you could tell that it had an advantage. Well, for the most part, I mean,
much
back
closer.
Then,
Like that was definitely the best home version of Donkey Kong.
I mean, all of those games were Zaxxon. All of them were very close to arcade perfect compared to.
They felt like it.
Right.
They felt like
compared to Atari 2600 and Intellivision. So they were they were clear steps up, not really competing with each other. It's like either you could afford the new one or you couldn't.
I gave my friend one of those like the Raspberry Pi things with all the Atari games on it.
Yeah.
And I'd done the thing where you import all the art. And it was for his birthday party, and like he's like, "Oh, look at that thing!" And then it turned into everybody just staring at, going through all the Atari games and looking at all the box art. Yeah. And everyone's being like, "That's what it was supposed to look like. Like that's what you're supposed to imagine."
That's what in my mind. Like Yara's Revenge looked way better on the box art.
You
than
desperately needed.
you
desperately needed that.
Yeah, to fill in the blanks of your imagination, basically.
Yeah.
So anyway,
you try to get someone to play River Raid now. They're like, I don't know what I don't know what this is.
Which is probably the best Atari 2600
up there,
game. It's one of the best ones. It's one of the ones that still holds up to this day. There aren't a lot that do. So it looks like finally the war is over. The war that none of you guys lived through. The Atari 2600 via television.
Yeah, really the only war there were those George Plimpton ads.
Right. They tried to drum up
a stodgy old man in a business suit trying to tell you which video game was better than the other, which is very funny. If you look up those old commercials, they're very funny.
Yeah, they are funny.
It is the old style, like,
comparison.
Learned man comparing things and telling you the better like it's such an old style of advertising.
Well, it's like he's sitting down next to the fire with like a pipe and he's pontificating about the Intellivision.
Right, well, because he was the Masterpiece Theater guy.
Right,
like that was the whole thing. That's why he did the Masterpiece Theater thing.
Yeah.
That was the whole gag. Was like he was talking about Goofy like he was a real actor.
Yeah.
But like that was the only time and that was mainly because Intellivision was such an underdog. They felt the need to like go directly at Atari to that was their only shot, was convincing people that hey, this is the superior experience if you're only going to get one or want to upgrade, get this, because they were several years behind the 2600. 2600 was earlier than most people realize.
Yeah, people don't realize.
Was that 75?
78, I thought it was.
Was 78?
I thought so. I think the Telemark stuff where you had like Pong and
the Odyssey and stuff
guns.
was 74, 75.
Yeah. And then later on we got the 2600.
And then the first the coin-op Pong at Andy Capp's in Menlo Park,
that
was
like
that was 71 or something.
Yeah, that was real early.
Yeah.
Yep. So anyway, there you go. R.I.P. to the industry's first ever console war. And it just set the stage for all the other ones that were to come, which were way more serious than Atari 2600 versus Intellivision.
Yeah, Atari, this is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, the 7th iteration of Atari.
Yeah.
Then Bushnell, then Time Warner, then Atari Corp, then JTS, then Hasbro, then Infogrames, and now 2 different investment groups.
That comes from Too Quick Capri.
Yeah.
You guys are awesome as usual. Our chat always fills in the blanks for the people who watch or listen to the archive. So anyway, let's move on. R.I.P. Intellivision, because I do feel like Intellivision now is just going to die, man. I just feel like it's going to go away.
I mean, look, man, you say Intellivision, and I can't think of anything.
Right. Astro Smash, I guess. The baseball game, but that's pure. The sports games.
That's purely because of the George Plimpton ads. Because I remember those ads. The
baseball
baseball
game, the running animation.
Yeah, the baseball game was the thing they used to show all the time.
Yep.
But I never even played that.
There weren't a lot of great Intellivision.
No, it was
sports games and Astro Smash.
For me, it was always 2600. Everybody had the 2600, so you played that all the time. And I had a couple friends who had ColecoVision, and that was really cool because those games are actually good.
Yeah.
Like you said. Yeah, they were less of a Rorschach test and more of like, yeah, this is Donkey Kong.
It looks like Donkey Kong.
This looks like asteroids. This is it.
Yeah. Yep. Moving on. Next up, there was a new trailer that was released this week that I could not believe how horribly it performed on SIFTD. And it is the story trailer for Elden Ring Erdtree DLC. Matt,
I didn't even know this came out. This is literally the first I've heard of this.
This was like the 10th most popular trailer on SIFTD this week. Nobody cares. In fact, the only comment on this trailer on SIFTD was someone that used the last week tonight animated GIF.
Cool.
Basically saying like, okay, What is going on with the Shadow of the Erdtree deal? It really feels like nobody cares, Matt.
I'm finding it hard to care, that's for sure. It just feels it's a little too low. It's a little too late.
You think it's too late?
Everyone's kind of played Elden Ring to the point that they wanted to play Elden Ring, and now everybody knows that the DLC for these games is always like hard as nails, and you got to be a certain distance in.
Like, I know I probably can't even play it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure I can, but I don't know if I want to, because like, I don't know. Like, I love Bloodborne, but I didn't think the Hunters that DLC was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
they're always just like extreme tests of ability and skill and build, and like I don't know if my build is good enough for whatever they're gonna throw at me on this thing, and I don't want to redo. I mean, my character's like level 208 or something. I don't know. I don't want to grind more on that thing. Like, that's crazy.
Why do you think there seems to be a lack of interest? You said for you personally, but why do you think that just people in general don't seem to be resonating with it?
I don't know. I mean, part of it might just be like, we'll worry about it when it's here.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't
known quantity.
Like, this isn't very interesting to look at. Like, people want to see the gameplay, people want to see the environments, people want to see the fights, the bosses. The stories in these things you got to piece together through like found scraps of paper and stuff in the game.
It's odd that they would put out a story trailer.
It's very weird, actually. And so I'm sure a lot of people are just sort of like, well, I'll deal with it when it gets here.
Yeah.
You know? Which I think makes sense.
It'll be really interesting to see how it sells ultimately. Because again, this is the game where this kind of broke through to the mainstream beyond what, people were playing of the prior games.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll do well. It's just, I think it's a combination of like the mainstream isn't really the people that bought this game and hadn't played a From game before and liked it. They're gonna notice it when it goes up.
Yeah,
and probably get it
when it's in the PSN store or on.
And the
Microsoft
people
store.
that know all this stuff about it, like I mean, there's sort of a known quantity element to this, and there's sort of I'll deal with it when it gets here.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know, and there's the game's old enough now that there's backlash against it. You'll see a bunch of people. It's like, actually, Elden Ring kind of sucks, and Dark Souls 1 is the best one.
We've got to that point now.
Yeah, we've got to that point now. We got everyone. We got to that point where like the good thing is actually bad in the same way. It doesn't take as long as how long it takes for the bad thing to be actually good. Which takes about 15 years, judging by maybe a little less.
Some people in chat
I saw people yesterday posting lists of like their ranked lists of Spider-Man movies, and they were putting the Amazing Spider-Man movies above the Into the Spider-Verse films, and I'm like, I'm
actually not that surprised by that at all.
Because they were 12 when Amazing Spider-Man 2 came out. Like, Amazing Spider-Man 2 is one of the worst superhero movies ever made.
It really is awful.
It is unbelievably bad.
I know, it's really bad. Yeah.
And you can tell it's bad because after it happened, Sony went to Marvel and said, "Please help us." Yeah. That's same thing with like Spider-Man 3. Spider-Man, you can always tell when something kills. I mean, that was as bad as Batman and Robin when people walked out and were like, "Well, I guess superhero movies are dead."
Yeah.
And then Blade saved it a year later. People forget that.
Right. Yeah.
And why the hell has it taken 7 years to write a Blade movie? What's going on over there?
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see, because my big X factor with Elden Ring is, a lot of more casual-ish players bought it and played it, and now I'm wondering, like, what did they think of it? Like, do they like it enough that they're going to want to pay for some more of it?
I mean, if you ever play any of the DLC on almost anything, not just From games, but like you get like the trophies and stuff, it's like 1.2% of people have those trophies. Like, no one plays this stuff.
It makes you wonder if it's worth it for From to spend that much money on DLC.
I mean, I don't know about this much time is really the question. Is like,
time is money in game.
And it takes a lot of money to keep a development studio open. Yeah. Like, that's the one saving grace, I guess, of Star Citizen is that like, the amount of money they've made, $700 million with no release date, nothing. Don't give me this shit that alpha is no. Sorry, no.
Yeah.
I was an original Kickstarter backer for that 12 years ago. Fuck you.
Yeah.
Where's my Wing Commander game, assholes?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
How about you release that before the people you mocapped the story for that die? How about that? That's my line in the sand.
Yeah.
Squadron 42 has to beat Malcolm McDowell to the finish line.
Yeah. I think to your point, though, I think you're right. I think we're not going to be able to glean anything from how well it sells because it's just such a small percentage of people buy DLC anyway.
Yeah, I think it'll do well as DLC goes.
Yeah.
But I don't know what the frame of reference for
Isn't
that
it like
is.
$50 or something too?
It is. It's 40 or 50.
Spendy,
I mean, apparently it's huge.
It sounds like it's Elden Ring 2, basically.
Almost, yeah. It sounds like there's a lot to it. Yeah. But at the same time, it's like, do I want to do that right now? It's
I have no interest.
I loved Elden Ring, but like, I kind of feel like I got all the Elden Ring I needed.
Yeah.
And it's weird that like all this time later, I still kind of I loaded it up yesterday. Actually,
you did?
Because someone said a thing like if your build doesn't have 60 vigor by the time you're level 125, it's a bad build.
Oh wow, we have tons of awesome comments.
I looked at, I was like, I should load up my save because I don't actually remember what my stats were. And I'm level 208 or something, and my vigor is 45. And then there's a lot of people saying, oh well, 50 is where you lose diminishing returns. There's no reason to go higher than that and all that stuff. And like sure enough, but the original poster was talking about like PvP,
right?
Which I basically ignore.
Yeah.
Which
I think most people
at 60
do.
vigor with the right items, you basically get one more hit before you die.
Yeah.
And while that doesn't sound like a lot,
it is.
That is
the difference. Sometimes.
Big difference sometimes. Yeah. So that guy's probably right, but I'm not gonna respec my dude.
Let's see what you guys are saying. You're saying a lot about this. Actually, this topic has generated a lot of discussion here in our chat. And I also says, I'm sure people care. There's just nothing to say. What do you say? I mean, what do you mean there's nothing to say?
I mean, I agree with him.
Isn't there a brand new like bad guy in all the trailers and everything?
Yeah, but I don't know what the fuck I'm looking at in that trailer. Yeah. There's nothing to say about it. Like, what are you going to talk about? Like, I don't know what to say about that. It's some big dude.
From fans don't care about CG trailer. I don't think that's CG. I think that's in engine, but it's a cinematic trailer. People are going to buy it anyways.
I mean, the woman walking.
Are they?
The woman walking through the blood heart thing. That's CG. That's definitely CG. It doesn't look that good. That game doesn't look that good.
Matter of fact says I'll buy it. One Super Master Gamer says I put 70 hours into Elden Ring. I'm done. Fair enough. Cinetech, I'm not a FromSoft guy. Try some games, always bounced off. Never played Elden Ring. Well, I'm like you, but I did play Elden Ring, and it is a little bit more approachable than their prior games.
Yeah, I think it's the most approachable From game of that type.
Mm-hmm. Vincent says that there's not a whole lot else available in June. That's true. Thank God for not E3. What's with the fisting in the Elden Ring trailer? I'm not even sure what you're talking about. JJ Forcebreaker says, Elden Ring is too big for its own good, in my opinion. Yeah, I mean, it is. It's almost like overkill.
There's a lot there.
Yeah, it's a huge
You get your money's worth.
Barry Lomax says, yeah, I mean, I played Elden Ring for like 300 hours. I'm excited for this, but it's like been saying it for years that I'd love to see From do something different. Yeah, I think a lot of people feel that way.
I mean, yeah, I'm at almost 200, I think.
Yeah.
And that's not even counting my PC save, which is probably almost 100 on its own.
Yeah. Story in the From Software games are stupid. A giant hand, WTF. Yeah, I've not really
Yeah, but it's the giant hand of the king of the night of the darkness that came before the shattering, and who fucking gives a shit?
Some people do.
I don't get it.
Mazerin says, I finished every Souls game and couldn't tell you what the story was in any of them. Yeah,
same.
You have to really dig to find it.
That's its own hobby, really.
And MySQ says, I have 2,000 plus hours in this series, and I have yet to finish Elden Ring. Wow.
Elden Ring is there's a difficulty spike at the end of that game, that's for sure.
Andy T. Monahan only finished Bloodborne the first time a few weeks back. I'm good. Yeah, wow. You guys have a lot of comments about this. What else you guys got? Yeah, you guys just talking amongst yourselves there. So, Silk Snake getting banned by our auto mods for saying you're crazy, which is crazy.
Yeah, because it's bullying. Okay, I mean, I guess. But
I guess. I don't think he was talking to anybody in our chat, though.
I mean, the chat filter doesn't know that.
Right. It just says you're calling someone crazy.
Yeah. I've seen weird things get flagged in there.
Yeah. But anyway, to Vincent's point, next month, Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree DLC.
Half the shit I say on this show would be flagged in chat.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. You're going to have to play it, Matt. I'm not going to play it.
I mean, I'll play it. Can't promise I'm going to spend 100 hours on it.
I can't play it. I never finished the game. Like, I don't think I can play it.
Yeah. Well, I didn't...
Have you not finished Elden Ring?
I think I did. I mean, I'm definitely high enough level.
I mean, dude, you showed me one time I came in and watched you play. You were, like, touching bosses, and they just fell down. Like, you literally were just like... ting, and they just crumble to the ground.
Yeah.
So I think you can handle it. I definitely can.
I mean, if I didn't, I can't remember if I finished it or not. If I didn't, I'm at the last boss.
You can probably beat him with like 2 swipes.
I mean, usually you don't need to beat the game to do the DLC. You just have to be a certain level, past a certain point, and get to a certain area.
Right.
Which I'm sure I'm there.
Still have not reached.
You maybe not. I mean, I definitely have seen everything in the game.
Yeah.
But I can't remember if I killed the last boss.
Well, you can do that now.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's the latest on Elden Ring: Shadow of the Erd.
What's the last boss? I remember. DLC. I don't remember a goddamn thing about that game. That game washed over me like a river.
You played the living crap out of it.
Yeah, I played a ton of it. Yeah, but I don't. I mean, I'm trying to think of. I mean, I can't remember her name, but that woman who's like the hardest, the one that everybody got stuck on, who can kill you in like 2 hits near the end.
All of them.
Can't remember. No, she's special. She's got an attack that's very hard.
I mean, I never made it that far. So.
I can't remember her name. Melania. I guess I should remember that as Trump's wife. Fitting.
It's funny.
I remember that. I remember like the first couple because I had trouble getting past them because I'm like, what the fuck? And I'm like, I can just go over here and do anything else. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
And then beyond that, God. That was probably like big guys.
I just remember I watched you fight a boss that I had fought literally like 80 times and couldn't get close to beating. And you literally cast like one spell and it just died.
My wizard was no joke.
Like, what?
Okay. That was the big like wolfy guy. No, those were just regular enemies. Really.
Yeah.
The stupid jumpy gargoyle thing. Like, I don't know, man. That guy. That game's kind of a blur.
It all over. Yeah. So anyway, that's the latest on Elden Ring. Next up, I teased this a little bit ago when we were talking about Neil Druckmann's interview about the future of PlayStation. Well, PlayStation went so far as to put together a crazy trailer of all the different departments at its company, what those departments think the future is going to be. And obviously, PlayStation is a big part of Sony, so you get a lot of glimpses in here of what the people at Sony think the future of PlayStation is. And I think probably the thing in this that catches people's attention the most is a controller. Have you seen this yet, Matt?
No.
So eventually they show, and let me see if I can jump around here.
You can make me draw my own characters. You can go right the fuck home immediately.
They use Horizon a lot in this to demonstrate a lot of the ideas that they're kind of percolating in their R&D labs. But there's one part where they show like this person. Hopefully I can find it here. And doesn't take too long. Here it is. So here's like they show you what like the next PSP could be. They show you what like the next cell phone could be, and right there is some vision of the future for PlayStation.
Well, I mean that's nonsense.
That controller's nonsense.
Yeah.
You think?
There's no buttons on it. What are you pressing?
Well, there are.
There's nothing. No, those are discs. They're just lit discs. They don't.
I'm guessing buttons on them.
But they're not actual buttons. They're just like
you're not gonna
virtual
feel the
buttons,
of
and they're not marked with anything. And that thing's too flimsy to pass a drop test.
No, you're
like,
right.
That's some weird futurist dude's idea of what a controller looks like who's never probably used one.
Well, that's what all this is. This is all just pie in the sky dreams from Sony R&D, basically.
I mean, if you ask the person who made this, they'd probably tell you that the actual controller isn't even real. It's just AR. It's just you're imagining the controller is in your hand.
That's what your brain is imagining. Where do you think the future of controllers is going to go, Matt?
I think the future of controllers is pretty much the present of future of
controllers. We've kind of figured out at this point that there's no making them better, really.
I mean, I'm sure there's making them better in terms of like build quality and reliability and longevity. But like, what else do they need to do? Mm-hmm. Again, stop creating solutions in search of problems. Like
one thing we forgot to mention when we talked about the new Joy-Con that are reportedly coming to Switch 2, we never talked about the fact that Nintendo has ditched real triggers on its controllers since the GameCube?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's been since the GameCube since the Nintendo's had real working, like, analog triggers.
Was the Wii just a digital trigger?
Yeah, it's just on and off. Yeah.
Wasn't the Wii U... Didn't the gamepad have real triggers?
On and off, too.
Is that on and off?
Same as Switch, yeah. That's one thing that I think Nintendo could do to improve its Joy-Con 2, or whatever the hell it ends up calling it. Creating real triggers for racing games and things like that. Now, granted, I don't play a lot of racing games on Switch, to be perfectly honest, but I think with Switch 2, that will become more viable because it's better hardware. So, I mean, I think Nintendo can make improvements to its controller, but to your point, you're right. It does kind of feel like they've hit the zenith with the console game controller.
Yeah, really just build quality and longevity and reliability.
No stick drift, stuff like that. Or, swap out the sticks, which they're already doing.
That's fine. I mean, starting to put, like, the paddle things on the backs of them by default. I don't use those, but people seem to like them. Yeah, the kids seem to like them, so... having those be default seems like it's something that's going to be demanded by the main, the main demographic eventually.
But then they can't sell their $200 controllers anymore.
Well, then you sell those with all the better stuff.
Right.
You get
you only get the
paddles
replaceable sticks.
The paddles are plastic on the standard controller. They're metal.
Steel.
Yeah, steel, carbon steel.
Yeah, carbon fiber or whatever. Anyway, just a little bit of a glimpse at what PlayStation is kind of thinking behind the scenes. Nightwing 3060 says they need to fix drift in their controllers. Everybody does. Like, literally, I haven't had a problem yet with the Xbox, but other people have. But I've had, like, the PlayStation 3 and PlayStation 4 controllers, I had horrible stick drift. Mm-hmm. I remember one time I set my controller down, I went to get a drink, and I came back, and the character had ran off a cliff. Like, he just ran off on his own because the stick was drifting. So, it's not just Nintendo. I
had to replace my PS4 controller, I think, three times.
Yeah. It was not great built.
No, terrible.
I don't think.
And I was saying I had to replace. Did I have to replace my DualSense? Not yet.
Yeah.
But no, I went through at least 3, maybe 4 PS4 controllers.
Yeah.
The stick drift was inevitable.
So far, DualSense has held up well for me, though.
Yeah, the DualSense is good. I'm using the DualSense on the PC to play Ghost of Tsushima, and that's where you really notice the flaws.
Yeah,
if there's something wrong with your controller, you're gonna find it in. Well, I mean that's just the interface and some like the standoff bug is from the original game. I guess been there the whole time, and I don't know why it's still there, but whatever. But like when I would plug the Elite Xbox controller in, I would notice the dead zone problems. Like I had 2 Elite controllers, and one of them just did not work as well as the other when you plugged it into the PC.
Interesting.
And the DualSense, everything's fine.
Yeah.
I don't have any. I have some weird stuff that I think are due to the drivers, because they're things that simply do not happen on the PS5, where like suddenly the defense button stops working, or Jin just starts running off in one direction without even pressing it, and I can't stop. Like, the only thing that works is he's running. I can't attack, can't do anything. That has never, ever, ever happened on the PS5. You have to unplug and plug it back in. But so far, other than driver issues, I was actually pleased because I was worried when I plugged the DualSense in. Was I suddenly going to discover that there's a dead zone issue on this controller because for whatever reason the PC games seem to be more sensitive to that?
Yeah.
And no, it's been fine.
It's good.
So I'm happy. I'm pretty happy with the controller build quality on both systems at this point.
Xbox could improve its haptics, which is where Sony's ahead of it right now.
Or just a less annoying motor.
So it is like It actually woke up my wife playing Hellblade 2.
Like the Elite is
that rumble so loud.
The Elite's better than the standard controller, but they all sound like you're
there's a motor in
there. Yeah,
it.
It sounds like you're choking a tiny robot to death.
That's a good way to describe it. So anyway, there's a little glimpse of what Sony R&D thinks the future is, but to Matt's point, it's not as particularly practical, and I'll be really surprised if we end up seeing anything like that tech.
Yeah, that looks like something Square Enix would have made in the early 2000s when they thought that they were going to dominate all online play forever.
From internet cafes.
Yeah, that was like a play online demo right there.
Next up, Matt, I'm interested to get your take on this. Finally, Star Wars Hunters is going to be released. It's coming out June 4th. It is a 4v4 multiplayer shooter, free to play. The catch is it's only coming to Switch and mobile at launch on June 4th.
Yeah, because it's a mobile game.
Yep, and my guess is eventually it'll probably also release for PlayStation and Xbox, provided it doesn't completely tank for Switch and mobile. But this is one of those games, they showed it for the first time. They're like, oh, it's really complicated to do cross-platform play. I mean, I don't know that I've seen mobile and Switch in anything else but Fortnite.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think that's the only one that's managed to figure it out, Epic. And they've done it for this Star Wars shooter. How are you feeling about this game, Matt? Are you excited for it at all?
I have no interest in this whatsoever.
Really? What is it about it that turns you off other than it's
a
shooter?
multiplayer mobile game. I don't give a shit about this game at all. Like, who cares? Really dumb. Like, I think it looks fine, I guess, but I have zero interest in this. It's like needless chaos. And
does it bother you that they make games like this using the Star Wars license? Would you prefer that they don't make these and they make stuff that you want to play?
No, because this thing existing doesn't change any. It's not like this team was going to make KOTOR 3 if they weren't making this. You know? Who cares?
It seems kind of good the way the Star Wars license.
It'll probably do fine, but I'm not gonna bother. I mean, I'll probably play it on the Switch because we're gonna talk about it or whatever. But like,
I'm definitely gonna play it.
If it wasn't for that, I would never look at this game.
Yeah.
Ever. Like, I don't care about. I barely care about Battlefront.
Yeah.
You know.
I'll be honest with you, I don't care about it all that much either anymore. But this is kind of in my wheelhouse. I do love Star Wars, but it's like a lot of the characters in this are people that I don't even really recognize.
I mean, I think most of these characters are original. I don't recognize any of these people.
If you don't recognize them, then they're original.
I think these are all custom player characters.
Oh, really?
I don't recognize anyone here.
So you think everyone just creates their own character for this?
100%.
And then you just get to use the armaments of Star Wars in the fights, in the gadgets.
There are no established characters here. These are all custom things.
What do you think what's up with the stormtroopers?
Well, they're just
in the Jawas.
You can just wear.
It's just a costume that you can wear.
Or I'm sure Jawas are a class.
Yeah.
You can pick.
Yeah.
You can be a Wookiee, you can be a Trandoshan, you can be a Rodian, and obviously you can outfit your guy as a Sith or a Jedi or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, or a Mandalorian. None of these are actually established characters. They're all obviously reminiscent of established. Like that one Jedi has the droid head of the feminist droid in Solo, and you can see the pieces kind of being put together. I think that's what that is. And he's got the cracked helmet, sort of like the.
All of them do.
A lot of crack. Yeah, that seems to be part of that helmet design. But then you can customize the colors and so clearly it's just. I mean, it's Fortnite. Really?
It does kind of feel that way. Yeah, Fortnite, Star Wars with Star Wars.
I'm surprised there's no footage of anybody flossing.
You're right. Where are the emotes? They haven't really.
I'm sure there are.
I know they're in there. They just don't show them in this trailer. But again, this does launch on June 4th. It is free to play, but again, it is only available for Switch and iOS and Android. My guess is within a year, provided it doesn't completely tank, we'll probably see PS5 and Xbox Series versions of it. But I think it was also smart probably to concentrate on Switch because it's the same environment. It's basically a mobile phone without the phone part. So I guess that all makes sense. But just a reminder, it is coming out on.
And you're looking at a pretty similar graphical fidelity. Mm-hmm. So maybe you want to plus it a little bit for the big consoles or PC.
Yeah. It is kind of crazy how good mobile games look now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty nuts that this
if only
little skinny ass phone can display amazing things.
If only they were good games.
They're right. That's really the problem. Is that the people who play games on these things don't expect better games.
And if only you could find the good games through the giant swamp of nonsense.
Yep, it's too much. Next up, here's an interesting story. So GameStop, as we all know, has struggled to remain relevant and to keep its revenue up, despite the fact that a bunch of crazy people keep buying its stock for no reason whatsoever. GameStop is struggling financially. Like if you look at its financial reports, it's not turning profits. Its revenue continues to drop. And so, in GameStop's endless wisdom,
water wet, sun rising in the east. Like
this
is not new.
Yeah,
I don't know why. I mean, I know it's because that stock manipulation thing that happened a couple of years ago, and it's like 4 people got a lot of money out of it, and now everyone wants to duplicate it somehow, and like that only works once, folks. Yeah. I don't know what to tell you.
And it's not worth the money that people are paying for the stock right now.
No, I wish I'd done it though.
Yeah, well, of course.
When I calculated once, if I'd done it the minute I'd realized what was happening,
I thought I was too late.
That's reasonable, but because I thought so too. Yeah. But I calculated later if I'd actually done it, even when it was like 4 hours into it or whatever. Uh-huh. If I'd done it then, I would have probably come out with about $600,000.
Yeah, you still would have made a ton of money.
It would have been fine.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't. I'm not a hodler. I don't. I was like,
you're buy and sell.
Nope, I'm way over. I would. You immediately sell once you've got your stake back. Yeah. So you get your money back, and now you just let it ride.
And then it's all profit.
And see what happens.
All gravy. Yeah.
And then that was a miss.
Yeah.
On my part.
A lot of people missed it, unfortunately.
But it's not going to happen again. Like that was like. You caught everybody off guard, including the entire financial industry, and that's not going to happen.
What's happening again right now?
They're trying, but
it's the DJT stock.
Oh, the DJT, yeah.
It's also a meme stock.
Yeah, but you can't sell that.
Yeah.
Like, that's the problem.
Well, it's also just a way to go around campaign finance law. It's
true.
It's like them being able to donate billions of dollars to Trump without having to follow the law.
Right. Well, then, I mean, he's doing some very weird. I don't know if you saw, he asked for the oil industry for $1 billion the other day because they'll make more money when he cuts all their taxes
he's so
to
rich
nothing.
Already. Why does he always ask people for
money?
Well,
that's the thing. Is like, if I'm a corporation in that situation, why wouldn't I just not donate anything and then
rich,
because you're going to do the tax cuts anyway?
You're
so
rich,
I'm gonna reap it. Yeah. You're good.
So anyway, GameStop, trying to right the ship, has decided to start buying and selling Pokemon cards. And as an experiment, a YouTuber went in there.
What year is it?
Was an experiment. A YouTuber went in there, and apparently this YouTuber that did this does not have the best reputation. He's kind of known to not be such a good person. But
What is it?
I don't remember his name, and I don't want to bring it up. But he went in, and he got...
Do you have any idea how little that narrows it down?
Right. I know. He went in there, he got basically half price for his Pokemon cards at GameStop. Mm-hmm. And he freaked out about it and made, more... outrage farming content around it.
Well, you mean like he brought like valuable ones in to trade in?
And the thing with GameStop is they have to be graded. You can't just bring your card in and they like look at it and tell you it's worth X amount of dollars.
Okay.
It has to be graded already.
If you take that to any dealer who does Pokemon or you get any, that's how much you'll get because they have to sell it. Money. They have to sell it back. Yeah. Like that's the whole. That's how retail. That's how it works. That's how secondhand retail works. Like what the heck? Like. Yeah. You can tell these people never had a fucking job.
Yeah.
Like
they don't know how the real world works. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, he created all this outrage. People joined in on the outrage. As it turns out, that's just the way the world works. So I guess the fact of the matter is, if you're looking for a reliable place to sell some of your Pokemon cards to, GameStop's actually not bad.
Yeah.
You're going to get about the going rate for your cards.
If you've been dumb enough to grade them all, I guess.
Yeah.
Which is also a grift.
It is.
Slabbing stuff is nonsense. Don't do it. Don't do it to your comics. Don't do it to your toys. Don't do it to your cards. It's pointless.
But don't you get more money for them if they're graded?
No, because that's what the grift is. But good luck finding someone to pay that money. Like it's only worth as much as someone wants to pay for that. And generally, trying to find a buyer for a slabbed something that is not like a first appearance of Spider-Man kind of value thing is impossible.
You can't sell it on eBay?
You can try, but it's not going to move.
Really?
Very rarely.
So what's the point of collecting the Pokemon cards then?
To play with them.
No, to collecting the Pokemon cards.
Because you like them.
Yeah.
That's it. Like, obviously Charizard is worth a ton of money, but that's if you had it from 1998.
Well, he had cards that only came out from like the last Pokemon game that are worth $200 or whatever.
Right. But like you're never going to get $200 for that.
Really?
It's just like the perceived value of it because they're important for the meta of the gameplay right now. And they may drop in price as the series continues and those cards are no longer hot. Like Black Lotus, which is a Magic the Gathering card from the first series, is notoriously one of the most valuable trading cards in the history of everything.
I'm familiar with it, yeah.
And that's because the card was not only rare, it was not only the very beginning, but it still is playable. Like what it does is still valuable to the current meta,
the game.
And Pokemon changes a lot with that. I mean, Charizard is still actually pretty damn good. Some of that stuff is still good. Like there's Yu-Gi-Oh cards from the early stuff that's still worth a lot, but like a lot of that stuff is unpredictable.
Well, I was surprised, Matt. So were you at E399?
That was my first one.
Okay, did you get the card there, the Pikachu card?
No.
So the trading card game had just launched in 1999.
Yeah.
And they were at E3, and they gave out only to people who were there in person. And keep in mind, this was back when E3 was like puny compared to what it became.
Oh, very small. And like you had to be industry.
Yeah.
Like there was
the only people who could get in were
or you had to effectively
work at GameStop.
Lie that you were a video game company, which is what we did.
So anyway, they had just launched the trading card game. No one even knew what the heck it was. And you go in there, and they were handing out this Pikachu card that has E399 embossed on it in gold leaf or whatever.
Honestly, I might have gotten it and thrown it out. I don't remember. I had no interest in that.
So I got it, and I just held it forever.
Yeah.
And I just assumed, like, you know what? Probably someday this card will be worth money. I had like completely forgotten that I even owned it. And so finally, like a couple years ago, I was like, I'm going to check and see how much that freaking card's worth. I went and looked. It's worth like $100. Mm-hmm. It's like literally a card that was given away to like 100 people with the first ever set of Pokemon trading card games. It's worth like $100.
Because it's not useful in the game. It's not part of the meta.
I was just like, why'd I hold this thing this whole time? And I, babied it and put it places where it wouldn't get wrinkled. It all for nothing.
I mean, it's not your belief system there was not unreasonable. Like that is generally how collecting things works.
Because logically, you would think something rare.
But again, the trading card games or collectible card games, as they're called now, they like the meta is all is it useful for the game? Is it going to help you win games? That's all anybody cares about. That's there's some stuff that's like super limited drops or like I have I'm not into Magic stuff very much. I play with I have some friends who are into it, and I go play because they want an extra person, and I kind of know how to play. But I'm not super into Magic. But I did several years ago buy a full set of the special foil Godzilla cards. They do things where like they do a brand tie-in for certain sets, and rarely you get them, and then there's like a super foil version. And they did a bunch of Godzilla ones. The art was amazing. They're very cool. And I love Godzilla, so I'm like, I'm going to go get. So I got a full set of those. I can't remember how much it was, a couple $100. And those are still worth something because they're rare and they also all those Godzilla cards. What they do is they're not their own cards. They are simply Godzilla skinned versions and renamed versions of existing cards in the set, and so they are still useful for play. I think only like 2 of them now are actually still used in any large capacity in actual play, like tournament play. So those 2 are still worth something, but it's fun if you're playing against somebody in like a tournament or even just like at a game store, just whip out like this rare Godzilla card and like it's, it doesn't do it. It's not a win button or anything, but it's that kind of thing. But if it's not useful for the gameplay, the only people who care about it are Godzilla fans. Well, and there's not that many of us.
Yeah. I went on eBay and people were asking like $1,000 for it. But then I went and looked at like the item last
you look at the completed items.
It was like $120.
Really and that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And you can go. I mean, I have several friends who worked at Golden Apple for a long time, and one of the things they talked about all the time was how useless it is to slab your comics, which is putting them in that graded thing.
Yeah.
Because theoretically it's supposed to up their value, but no one buys those.
Yeah.
No one.
I think really the more important thing maybe is just protecting it from getting it wrinkled.
Right, but you've got bags and boards for that, which have worked fine for literally decades. Yeah. Like the Death of Phoenix thing that I have, that was in a bag and board for 30 years. Yeah. The same bag and board for 30. That's because that's the one that I was on the shelf.
That's crazy.
For when I at the local comic store, I was on the shelf for however much. I couldn't afford it forever, and I went in that store shut down long ago. But the guy still maintained his little storage locker nearby, and every once in a while he'd open it up for big sales. And one Christmas I was up home, and he did it, and I went to go look, and he had this big long box full of X-Men, and it was like $100 for all this X-Men, and it was basically X-Men, like it was like 120 through like 202 or something. It was like this huge older set that I didn't have, and it had Sabretooth, it had all that stuff in it. And so I bought. I'm just like, $100 because he just wants to out. He's just moving stuff. He's moving
trying to get rid of it. Yeah.
And he maintained that place for a long time. But he's just like he's trying to move stuff, get new stuff in, move stuff. Like it was just a money making thing for him. And more power to him. He's doing all right these days. He doesn't do that anymore. But so not only did I get all these back issues of X-Men that I always wanted, I got the exact copies that I wanted that I stared at in that store when I was growing up. And they're all the same.
And you paid nothing for it.
The fucking price sticker on the thing is the same as as in 1986. It was like, and like they're fine. They're fine.
Yeah.
Like you don't need these big. That's literally just an investment scam.
It's really crazy how you have the adults like tackling the kids in Walmart to get these cards, and then ultimately they're not all worth all that much money.
I mean, there was
they're hoping to get the Charizard.
There was the Van Gogh thing that they had to shut the exhibit down. I mean, the Pokemon Fury still exists, but it's funny because I think you're right. I mean, I think those are more collectibles than anything else. But like in 20 years, how much is that Pikachu Van Gogh card going to be worth? Probably about $100. Yeah. It's just not that interesting by that point.
Yeah, people don't care. No one cares about E399. We do.
No.
People buying cards don't.
No.
Yeah. There's no emotional attachment.
Because by absolutely, that's a rare item. Yeah. Like. Because not only was it given out in a limited quantity, but like how many people at that thing even knew what it was or who cared?
And threw it away. Like I can't even imagine how many are actually out there.
Yeah, 100%.
Like 1,000.
Especially because it was 1999. Most people at that expo didn't even know what Pokemon was.
They hadn't even really launched it yet.
It had only been out for less than a year in America.
Yeah. Yep. So anyway. Collectible cards, not the long-term investment retirement strategy you may think that they are.
Although if you have a full set of Blue Eyes White Dragon First Edition, you'll get about $1,000 for that.
Yeah, he'll do all right. Yeah. Next up, not a fun story to share, but one that we should probably discuss. Yesterday, it was revealed that the families of the Uvalde school shooting have sued Activision for Call of Duty. It sued a bunch of other.
Yeah, it is not to be crass, but it's definitely a shotgun approach to the suing here.
The lawyer that's behind this was just a part of some other big suit where people didn't think that they were going to win a lot of money, and they did. Mm-hmm. So the parents have found probably the right lawyer to try to work on these cases for him. No, I just want to say before we discuss
he's definitely the right pick for this.
Yeah. And I just want to say one thing before we discuss anything else about this is my heart is with the families of Uvalde. I am not speaking ill of them at all. They are going through incredible grief that even with the crazy shit that's happened to me in my life, I don't think I can fathom.
I think, like, in the constant battle to stop children from dying at the hands of guns in their own schools, go nuts.
Yeah.
Like, go whatever you think you need to do, whatever you think might get the headlines, whatever you think might make some progress, go ahead and sue Call of Duty.
Yeah.
Go ahead and do that.
Yeah.
I don't care.
I don't have any problem with what they're doing at all.
No,
but
not at all.
Also, I'm realistic, and they're not going to win.
No, they may end up with a settlement of some kind, but I think they're the other targets of the lawsuit are going to be more
the cops.
Yeah,
the
cops
go in for 7
the gun
8
manufacturers,
minutes.
like things. Yeah, that's more where you're targeted. But like, I think part of the reason Activision is included in this suit is because they want to draw attention to how much gun culture is normalized in terms of being targeted at children, younger players. And
I mean, technically, their children should not have been playing Call of Duty.
100%. But we all know that's not the case.
That's just not the way life works. Yeah.
It's just like the Columbine kids were playing Doom, which is technically M-rated.
Because you're a kid, and when you're a kid, you play video games.
Yeah, and a lot of parents are not involved enough to really pay attention to what their kids are doing,
right?
And understand what is M-rated and not M-rated. If you look at Call of Duty, it looks like half the things you'd see in a movie theater anyway. Like this kind of American parents do not give a shit about violence when it comes to their kids.
Nudity,
sex,
look out, but violence, don't
look out for that Switch store, kids. Hentai everywhere.
Yeah.
But if you want to blow the shit out of some people on the other side of the world, you go have fun.
But this stuff has been litigated before.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't the first time someone's tried to sue a video game for shootings or school shootings. And I understand why the parents are doing it, but unfortunately it's going to be a frivolous lawsuit that probably won't even go to court. It'll probably be thrown out before. There is a slight chance, I think, that Activision may settle, but Matt, they have such a strong case here. Like, I feel like if Activision did that, it's just doing it so it doesn't get its name attached to the Uvalde.
Yeah, there's an argument to be made to settle this immediately to make it go away.
Right. And
which I think is pretty likely.
Yeah, I mean, if you're Activision, you have that kind of money. Well,
Microsoft now. Microsoft is even more interested, I'm sure, in not having that, because they're about to have their first year of owning Call of Duty, and you probably do not want this in the news while that's happening.
Which is actually the next story in our housekeeping, the fact that this morning it was confirmed again that Call of Duty will be day and date on Game Pass. We already knew that. Sarah Bond had said that during a chat and interview that she did like a week and a half ago. But now there's a trailer that came out this morning for Black Ops 6 where it basically confirms, and they put out a press release later on.
I enjoyed the people that don't understand why it's called Black Ops 6.
Really?
Because the last one wasn't called 5.
Yeah.
And I'm like, because it's the 6th Black Ops game. Like, what?
Yeah.
Why are we listening to any of you people about anything at this point if you don't understand how to count?
Yeah.
Let me blow your mind again. Do you know Assassin's Creed Shadows is technically Assassin's Creed 10, even though there have been 15 of them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The sad truth about this, though, Matt, is that the gun lobby wants the Uvalde families to sue Activision and Call of Duty because it takes the pressure off of the guns.
Yeah, it's like, see, it's not our fault. It's the
video games. It's the violent movies. It's the TV
I just don't
shows.
I don't think it's going to have the traction you might expect, because like there's a little bit of old-fashioned thinking here, where you kind of expect it's not like when what's his name, Jack Thompson, was doing this stuff, and you expected people in the legal field, especially old enough to be judges, to not really have any frame of reference or context when it came to what a video game was, Resident Evil Creek and shit like that. That's not true anymore.
Yeah.
Like if you're under 60, you have a pretty good idea of how video games work.
Yeah. Yeah, because you've been playing them.
So I think that's going to be a harder. I mean, obviously this lawyer is very sharp. He probably will be able to extract some money, and probably pick his judge properly. I think you bring it where you need to bring it, and try to find a judge, because there are judges you can find who have their own pet issues, and if you find one that thinks that this is, it's not that hard to find a judge who loves their guns and
hates video games.
Yeah. So we'll see.
But, again, just an unimaginable tragedy. I can't even imagine what the families are going through. So I do understand why they would pursue something like this. And if a lawyer came to them and said, hey, we got a case here, why they would be like, okay, let's just spread it as far as we can to try to make a change.
Right. Well, because what are the headlines they've gotten have been largely because of this.
Yeah.
Suing the cops and suing the gun manufacturers is not exactly a new move.
Yeah.
Suing Call of Duty, that's news.
Yeah.
So as a publicity stunt,
we're talking about it right
pretty
now.
Well. Yeah,
so,
100%.
Yeah, but
mission accomplished.
They have like a 2% chance of winning the case. I think more likely Activision, Microsoft just wants it to go away, and they're like, look, here's like $100K, and they'll take it probably because it will be a judgment on top of probably the other far more lucrative judgments.
And it's done its job. It put it in the headlines.
Yeah, and again, we're talking about it right now. Yeah. So mission accomplished on that front. And I just hope that the Uvalde families get whatever it is that they need to be able to heal. And
well, there is no way to do that.
There's no healing. Yeah.
This is literally just
trying to keep it from happening.
These are people trying to prevent other people from having to go through that.
Yeah.
Which is a very noble cause.
Yeah. Washington Post posted some photos from that shooting like a month or two ago that a lot of publications were afraid to publish, and I think that's part of the problem is that people are shielded from the reality of what's happening. And I do wonder if, it's time that we need to start showing that stuff.
100% time.
Yeah.
Remember, Vietnam ended because people started watching the war on TV.
It's true. Yeah. And it's hard to see. I did go look at the photos, and they're hard to look at, man. Yeah. But, I'll never forget them. I'll never forget some of those images, what I saw. And that's what you need. You need something that, hits people in the heart that they don't forget. So... it's a complicated
images
issue.
of that and images of the cops refusing to go in.
For 78 minutes. Yeah. Because there was one kid with an AK-47. And that was enough to stop dozens and dozens of cops.
Do we not teach flanking maneuvers anymore?
Yeah. It's insane. So anyway.
Send the Army next time. They'll do it.
Yeah. I don't think the Uvalde parents are going to get exactly what they want out of this, but if they can affect some change with it, then I'm all for it. So, and then segueing nicely to what Matt kind of hinted at a minute ago, we got confirmation this morning that Call of Duty 1000% this year, Black Ops 6, is launching day and date on Game Pass. We also got the first kind of real trailer for it. It's the live action cinematic trailer that kind of sets the tone. The full reveal is coming right after the Xbox Not E3 press conference on June 9th, I believe it is. And they're going to have their own little mini direct just for Black Ops 6. But this is kind of the first real trailer we got for it. They've released a couple other teasers that are just weird. I
don't know what to make of these things. I mean, I don't like Black Ops much anyway.
They're my favorite Call of Duty generally.
And to be fair, I haven't played one since 3. So what
this
do
is
I
supposed
know?
to take place in the Cold War, I believe, or is it the Gulf War?
I think it's the Gulf War because the last one was Cold War.
I think it is Gulf War. Yeah.
I think we just saw a Saddam lookalike.
Yeah, lookalike. There he is. Yeah, it's definitely.
What do you think it would take to do the real bombshell Call of Duty release?
What do you mean?
Call of Duty 5.
Well, I don't understand what you're hinting at, though.
Call of Duty 5. What would it take to make them call something Call of Duty 5?
I don't know.
Because
it's not Black Ops 5. You mean just Call of Duty 5?
Call of Duty 5.
That'll never happen.
For the first time since 2007.
That'll never happen.
Of the 5th installment of
that. It just spits all over all the spin-offs at that point. They'll never do it.
Yeah, well, that same thing. They were already doing that then. World at War wasn't a numbered game.
Yeah.
Call of Duty 3 wasn't supposed to be a numbered game. Basically, Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare ended the numbering system.
Yeah.
And they never called anything Call of Duty 5. And I think one of the ways you could, if you were really desperate, if you really just things weren't working and you wanted eyes on Call of Duty again, call something Call of Duty 5.
I mean, yeah, that would do it.
Yeah. What after all this?
It would shake people up.
After 17 years of all these side things and spin-offs and subtitles and da-da-da, now it's like we're just putting a game called Call of Duty 5.
Yeah. It would shake the rafters for sure. There's no doubt about it.
You have that one for free, Microsoft.
I mean, that's when they're at desperate times. And it could be after this.
Yeah, I'll talk to you next year. Yeah,
seriously. Because what's going to happen here, Matt?
I don't know.
I mean, we kind of talked about it a little bit last week.
It's the first time in a very long time that we don't know what's going to happen with a Call of Duty launch, really.
And once again, the coincidence has worked out just this morning for our patrons. We published a new episode of Pactor Factor, and the episode is what happens when Call of Duty is day and date on Game Pass. And just this morning, we get the final confirmation. Sometimes serendipity, it just works out that way. So if you're one of our patrons or a subscriber, or you subscribe with Twitch Prime, you can watch it right now on our Twitch channel. In fact, it's live right now on our Twitch channel if you want to check it out. But yeah, it worked out perfectly. Just a coincidence. I didn't have any idea they were going to announce this today. It just worked out that you guys asked the question. It got produced in time and published on the day that we got the final confirmation for it. So again, if you're a patron, you should go watch that episode because Pac has his own ideas on what's going to happen once Call of Duty is day and date on Game Pass. But Pactor seems to think that 10 million units a year were sold on Xbox of Call of Duty. That's where he thinks it is. And he seems to think that, I don't want to ruin the whole episode, but he does think that like there was 10 million people who were buying it on Xbox across the last 7 or 8 years. And that's the figure you kind of need to concentrate on when trying to figure out what's going to happen with the franchise. So we'll see, but it's a big risk. That's for sure. I mean, as we brought up last week, the fact that it's still selling on PlayStation, and no matter what, Microsoft is going to make all the money on those sales, all the DLC for the Battle Pass, all that stuff. All that money's going to go to Microsoft. So I don't think there's any way it's an unmitigated disaster, but it could be bad news. That's for sure. Like, you lose 3 or 4 million sales, that's a lot of money. Because it's not just that you're losing that initial sale, you're losing all the subsequent sales from DLC and cosmetics and the Battle Pass.
I wonder, like, you're clearly going to lose sales from the people who don't care about multiplayer. Because that's a small chunk of the population. But, like, you're basically dealing with, like, if you just want to play the campaign, you don't need to buy the game anymore.
Yeah. Yep.
Might be interesting to see how many people that actually is.
Yeah. But we're going to find out in the not-too-distant future. So anyway, I mean, Microsoft, it's pretty bold for Microsoft to do this, but I feel like it needed to do this at least 1 year. Because you got to figure out, like, you don't know until you try it. Once you try it, it could be a disaster, in which case you're like, okay, we're not doing that again.
Yeah, it's probably going to make pulling it off PlayStation a very attractive idea eventually.
Yeah, it could. But again, you're generating that money from the sales off of the PlayStation version.
Yeah, you basically got to, like, weigh the odds. Like, are people just going to, like, not bother? If you have to buy an Xbox to play Call of Duty,
will people do it?
How many people are going to do that? Or how many people are just going to be like, well, okay, well, screw that, I'll play something else?
I tend to think more than not will do it.
I would think so, but
I'm not 100% sure.
I would imagine they're looking for data right now.
Yeah. I'll be honest, this year's Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 is the least I have played of Call of Duty maybe ever.
I have seen a lot of people like ranking it as the worst of the series.
I stopped playing it in the first week of February, and then I uninstalled it and deleted 200 gigs of information off of the hard drive. My life has been so much better since then, and I haven't missed a game. And we're going to talk about a game here in a little bit that is a really good facsimile for Call of Duty, and it's free.
I'm very interested in like the people like doing like those ranking things, those tier rankings. For a bunch of them were doing Call of Duty this week, and like almost everybody put the new Modern Warfare 3 at the bottom, with ghosts and all that, and you know what was really near the top for almost everyone? Infinite Warfare.
Really?
The Infinite
Are you kidding
Infinite
me?
Warfare has turned around.
Are you saying there's a chance?
No, because it still didn't sell.
But
like the hardcore fans have finally come around to the idea that it was a really good campaign.
Yeah,
and
really
it's actually
freaking
a cool
good.
idea.
Just everything about it was good. Like I don't understand why they went away from that. But I mean, when you make that many games, eventually you have to go away from it. But then why they haven't come back? It's like
I don't know.
Maybe someday.
Also, the most common top ranked were
4.
No, it was
Really?
Modern Warfare 2 and Black Ops 2.
Okay.
By far the
Black
favorites.
Ops 2 is maybe my favorite Call of Duty ever. Yeah. So
that seems to be pretty well agreed
pretty
on.
common
But I
opinion.
thought it was very interesting that no one, not a single ranking list I saw, not one listed 1, 2, and 3 on it.
Really?
Fucking noobs.
That's really what it is. Well, 4 is what turned it into the
4 is turning into
sensation.
mega, but
those are still great games.
there's 3 other. Actually, there's more than that. There's also there's Finest Hour and Big Red One.
That's right, Big Red One.
Like the console ones that were sort of one-off
those
things.
little spin-off things. Yeah.
Yeah, and Call of Duty 1, of course.
Kind of like Bad Company.
Call of Duty 1, of course, is a PC only, completely different style.
Did Bad Company release for PC?
Yeah.
Did it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty sure.
I couldn't remember. I thought it was console only.
I think it was on everything.
So anyway, that's the latest on Call of Duty.
EA games are hard to keep up on with that because to buy them, I would have had to buy them through Origin, and I refused to do that. So I don't have a lot of EA's games unless they're also on Steam, and I don't think are they on Steam? No, I can't remember. It's been forever. I keep almost replaying Bad Company 2, and I just never do it because I did like that campaign a lot.
Yeah, it was good. It had all the destruction in it. That's what really set it apart. So anyway, that's the latest on Call of Duty. Again, we're going to have a huge update coming in the very near future from Microsoft after its Not E3 press conference. Retro Modern Gamer says COD 4 is the best in my opinion before it became unbalanced POS. Okay, we'll just let you share that opinion there. That's
a very retro modern opinion.
That is. How appropriate. And then our final story for housekeeping for GameFace 389 is something that Matt and I both predicted was going to come true. And now, according to another very reliable leaker named Dusk Golem, it appears that it is coming true, Matt. Remakes of Resident Evil 0 and Resident Evil Code Veronica are on the way. Dusk Golem, I think he predicted both the RE2 remake and the RE3 remake before they were announced.
Yeah, if he says it's probably true.
I don't know if he's ever been wrong regarding Resident Evil. So I think it's pretty safe to say at this point we're going to get a Resident Evil and a Code Veronica remakes. 0 doesn't need the remake as badly as Code Veronica does.
Mm-hmm. And I would argue neither of them need the remake as much as 1 does.
Right. Yeah, I mean, some people like, the GameCube rework of it. I do not. Yeah, I know you don't.
I hate pre-rendered backgrounds, and I think they were of the time, and they were the best they could do, and it was a stopgap measure because of the limitations of the tech of the time, and as soon as you didn't have to do them anymore, you should have left them in the dust.
Yeah. I don't think the GameCube could have... I think
the GameCube couldn't have done that visual fidelity, but that's the thing. It's like almost like, oh my god, it looks so good. Yeah, it's a fucking JPEG. Of course, it looks good.
Yeah.
But you can't interact with anything. It doesn't do anything. It's like you're still stuck in the.
It just allowed them to put all the polygons into the character models.
Resident Evil 1 with this presentation style, you absolutely need to do it.
I agree.
You need to have 1 through 4 in this format.
Maybe that's the ultimate. The final one.
Probably.
But I'm interested to see what they do with Code Veronica, man.
Code Veronica is interesting. I don't ever need to play.
I don't know how you fix it.
I don't ever need to play Resident Evil 0 again. I find that to be the most pointless entry in the main series.
For those of you who don't know, Resident Evil takes place on a train.
Yeah, 0 is on a train before 1 and explains where what's her name.
Is it Ada?
No, it's the young girl who's shows up in Chris's story in Resident Evil 1.
Oh.
Shelly or that's the
Sherry.
Little Sherry.
Sherry Birkin, right?
No, that's the little girl. That's the very little girl.
I thought that's who you were talking about.
No, she's a Stars person.
Oh.
You play as her and that other dude who's I don't know if he ever showed up.
The dude with the tattoos, the tribal tattoos.
He's a prisoner and you don't trust him at first, but then you do or something.
Yeah, and the Retro Modern Gamer does.
Rebecca, that's
Rebecca, yeah, Chambers. And Retro Modern Gamer does bring up that RE0, eventually you do get off the train.
But it's just that thing where there's that period where they wouldn't move on from that little section of time in Resident Evil.
Yeah.
And that was one of the, other than being one of the best games ever made, it's Resident Evil 4 was refreshing because it left Raccoon City and it wasn't dealing with a mansion incident or the immediate aftermath thereof.
That's why everyone was all over
expanded the world and moved the story forward. Which they're kind of having trouble with again.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
See if 9 can
hopefully
kick things in the ass a bit.
It sounds like it's going to be a revelation.
We'll
see.
Code Veronica, just in terms of almost everything, gameplay, narrative, story, characters, you got to rebuild. You got to rethink that whole thing from the ground up.
Yeah, there's no question that is going to be a remake.
Yeah.
There's no remastering that one.
Like that. Just to prepare everyone. This is going to be very different from the original. And everyone's going to, the usual suspects are going to scream woke about it because you probably don't want a completely insane brother-sister trans cross-dressing villain in a movie. It's just...
There's also some almost incest undertones.
Some weird incest things there, but they might be the same person, but maybe not. Right. And there's it's all very weird and
creepy. It's convoluted.
And creepy in a gross way.
Not a good way.
Not creepy in a thing as a beehive for a head, Resident Evil way, And the other thing is, of course, that game sucks.
Yeah.
I liked it very much when it first came out.
At the time, it was one of the best looking games I had ever played.
And because it freed the camera up and it wasn't because it wasn't pre-rendered, so it was 3D. It was
polygonal.
But I remember when it came out the remastered version came out on the 360, and we all got it and went to play. Even my group of online friends at that point 3 of them were like hardcore horror people. Like they loved Resident Evil. Their favorite thing was zombies. Like one guy just insisted you call him zombie. Like it was a whole. I mean, it was weird. It was weird. Like, and they all quit the remaster the same night.
Wow.
They're like, I can't play this. This is unplayable. It was just too much.
Well, I remember I was running Street Level Gaming at the time, and my partner who was working on the site with me reviewed it, and he turned in like a 10 out of 10 or whatever, and I was like, I don't know if it's like a 10 out of 10. But I let his review ride. So, At the time, people thought it was way better than it ultimately
Code Veronica is one of the most poorly aging games ever. Mm-hmm. Like, in terms of things that were well received, and you look at them now and you're like, was everyone crazy?
It came out at an unfortunate transitional time.
Yeah, it caught me in a transitional period right now, and I don't want to kill you, as Jules would say.
So anyway, we don't have any
Although
dates.
that opening cutscene is still good.
It is,
where she drops the gun and does that
that's right,
very John Woo nonsense. Very good.
So we don't have the dates for the remakes of Resident Evil 0 or Code Veronica, but again, the leaker Dust Golem is very reliable. I don't know, Matt. I think one of them might be coming next year.
Late next year, maybe.
I mean, we're kind of that's the pattern.
Aren't we aren't we expecting 9 early next year?
Yes, you're right. They would not put up a remake same year. They will let 9 earn its sales, and then probably the next year. So 2026 probably will get the first one of these two. Be my guess. But again, you're not missing much. These are 2 of the worst Resident Evil games in my opinion.
But again, they could really improve them and make them really good.
Yeah.
They've shown that they can. Improve even some of the best Resident Evils. Yeah. So
why wouldn't they be able to improve the worst?
Yeah, exactly.
They should be able to.
Everything they've learned so far can be. I mean, also, I would say Nemesis is not an amazing game.
Yeah.
And they made that better.
Yeah. I enjoyed Nemesis the second time around more than I did the first time for sure.
Oh yeah, try and go back to that original game. No.
Not easy.
Even the Dreamcast one is very. I mean, you can't even tell what you're looking at. Yeah. Nobody has any eyes.
Yeah. It's bizarre.
So, and we didn't. It was probably too late. But did you see that Microsoft made a deal with the Rocksteady guys?
I did see that just as I was walking out the door. Actually,
I can't remember Sefton Hill and
their new studio.
I can't remember what their new studio is called. They signed their game. So, see you all in 2030 for Kill Yourself Team. Unalive the Retribution guys. I don't know.
I think the Suicide Squad days are over.
I think so. I mean, they're gonna run. Do they have an original?
Maybe they'll just reskin their Batman.
That's
game.
what I was saying. Wait, do you do an original thing, or do you just go find someone that you could just do Batman?
Well, what if they already had that Superman game halfway done, and they're like, "Look, we'll just reskin it with our own superhero," and Microsoft's like, "All right, it could be
make an Invincible game."
Yeah.
Season 3 should
try to get a license.
Season 3 will be out around the same time as that game.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, that's going to do it for housekeeping for episode 389. We're about to get into the bulk of the show, but before we do that, here's a word from our awesome sponsor, LS Cream. LS Cream is a fine cream liqueur created by fellow gamer and sifter Stevens Charles. It's inspired by an ancestral recipe from Haiti called Cremasse, and a double gold winner for its original taste at the New York Wine and Spirit International Competition. LS Cream can be enjoyed on the rocks or as a mixer for drinks with its rich blend of fresh cream and neutral grain spirits with notes of coconut, vanilla, cinnamon, and nutmeg. It's great in coffee or to make espresso martinis. To learn more, discover amazing drink recipes, or to track down your own bottle using a handy store locator, head to creamls.com/sifted. That's creamls.com/sifted. That's right, people. Go to creamls.com/sifted and Cremasse dadass with some LS Cream. It has turned into one of my favorite liqueurs on the entire planet. And if you go to that website, you can figure out where to buy it locally, how to buy it online. I recommend going locally because if you go in there and they don't have it, you can demand that they start stocking LS Cream. And that will make life better for everyone in your local area. So again, go to creamls.com/sifted. Everything you could ever want to know about LS Cream is on the website. It's a really cool website. There's drink recipes there. Learn how to make some awesome drinks. Impress your friends. Impress your significant other. Get yourself a significant other with LS Cream. Go to creamls.com/sifted.
Getting some big promises there.
Hey, I'm just speaking from experience, Matt. Not saying specifically from LS Cream I found significant others, but I have definitely found significant others with alcoholic beverages.
Oh, well, yes. But for you to find a significant other with LS Cream would require a time machine?
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
But we don't know. Who knows?
Thinking back into my younger years when I was a dating lad, greasing the wheels a little bit with a fine liqueur is a smart strategy. I'm just going to lay that out
One
there.
day you'll just hand a bottle to yourself through the portal. It's like, use this. Use the device.
Yeah, you're right. That's funny.
Then your younger self just drinks all of it because it's delicious and doesn't actually go out.
Right, exactly. So anyway, let's get on with the bulk of GameFace 389. We're going to kick things off with undoubtedly the biggest game that released this week. It came out on Friday for Nintendo Switch exclusively, and that is Paper Mario and the 1,000-Year Door. Matt, I know you do not agree with this, but I did do a little bit of research, and it does seem that 1,000-Year Door is generally considered the best Paper Mario game by most people.
I agree with that.
Oh, I thought you said the first one was you thought was better.
This is the first one.
No, wait, this is the first one? I thought there was one before this. Like, just called Paper Mario. No?
This is a GameCube one.
Okay. So I was confusing something else with what you thought what you didn't think was the best one.
Yeah. I think Sticker Star sucks. And I didn't like the Wii one all that much, although it was fine. It was good. This is the best one by far.
Okay, so you do agree with that.
Yeah. This is a GameCube one.
Eric Cartman says Color Splash is better.
There was one for this N64. Yeah, I guess there was for an N64.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought you had said that was your favorite one.
No, it's this one.
Okay, cool. Okay. Well, I would just say this. I think people should play this game if they think it's the best Paper Mario
You probably think that because I bet I forgot about the N64 one and was saying the first one's my favorite.
Probably, yeah.
That's probably what happened.
Yeah, because you were thinking this was the first one.
Yeah.
That's probably where the wires got crossed, yeah. So I'm just going to say this right off the top here. I do not think that this game is worthy of the praise that it's received over the last 2 decades. It's a good game still, but I think one question a lot of people had was, is this game a remaster or a remake? And I can tell you 1,000%, having spent a huge amount of time playing this game, that it is just a remaster. They don't really fix any of the issues that I had with this game when I played it 20 years ago. Now, when I played it 20 years ago, I did not review the game, so I did not play that. I actually played more this time than I played back then, even though I think when this came out, I think I was the GameCube editor at GameSpot when it came out, but I assigned it to somebody else to review. So I played more of it this time than I played back then. And the basic plot of the game is that Princess Peach is going on a vacation. She gets there, and she's supposed to, and she calls Mario or sends Mario a note and tells Mario to meet her there at this place called Rogueport. Mario gets there, and Princess Peach is nowhere to be found, and he can't find her, and so it starts to.
These were the days before cell phones, folks.
And as it turns out, she's been taken captive by this dude called Grotus. He is the leader of the X-Nauts. The good news is, before you went on this trip, Peach gave you a map. And as it turns out, the map gives you the location of 7 crystal stars, and Grotus wants to collect the crystal stars. So he has a henchman named Lord Crump, who does a lot of the heavy lifting for him. And then there's these 3 shadows that are also a part of his crew, and all of them are trying to stop Mario from basically finding the crystal stars before Grotus can get them. So it becomes this thing where they're trying to find Mario. Once they find him, they're trying to get the map from him so they can be the ones to find the crystal stars. Meanwhile, Princess Peach has been kidnapped. They're actually taking good care of her in captivity, which is a little odd. And then later on in the story, Bowser starts to get involved. He finds out that somebody else has captured Princess Peach, and he gets jealous. He's like, hey, that's my gig. And he shows up, and it turns into this like triangle of people all trying to get the 7 crystal stars. And basically the objective of the game is to collect all 7, take them to the 1,000-Year Door, and it unlocks the 1,000-Year Door once you have all 7 of those stars. And that's pretty much the basic plot of it. However, the twist about this game, and one thing I will agree on about this game that I think does make it the best Paper Mario, is the story and the characters in the story. So we talk a lot about how if you play Nintendo games with your kids, some of them will cater to you. There will be innuendo and jokes that maybe adults will only get. There will be maybe some seedy characters here and there that kids just gloss over, but parents are like, what's up with that guy? This is the epitome of that. Rogueport is basically just this oceanside town full of criminals. And you come in as Mario, you're like shiny happy, and you come in there, and like everybody in this game is shady. They're criminals. They talk about like gambling too much. Like a lot of the stuff in this, I know kids would just be, it would go right over their heads. They would have no clue. So I will say right off the top that if you try to find games that you can play with your kids, that both you and your kids will at least glean a little bit of enjoyment out of, this is one of those games. At least I think. Do you remember, how much do you remember about this game, Matt?
I remember a fair amount. I remember, the action-based combat and the, nah, maybe not. It all kind of blurred. I mean, that was a long time ago.
Yeah. The writing in this is pretty good. There's not...
I mean, to me, I considered these sort of a successor to Super Mario RPG at the time.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people did. There's no voice acting in this. They use like Banjo-Kazooie gibberish, and I would just say there was at least 4 different characters in this game that drove my wife up the wall when they would talk, the way that they looped the gibberish.
Well, that's accurate to the original then.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think they swapped a lot of that stuff out.
Oh, they did. It's all new.
Oh, it is?
This is a remake. This is not the original code. They put everything in the new Origami King engine. Like it's
like I know they up-resed all the
They
sprites.
didn't up-res anything. It's all remade.
They redid.
It's all redone.
All
it's all new assets.
Yeah.
In fact, you can tell the sprites are all new because people have backs.
Backs?
They didn't have backs.
Oh, really? When they would turn away from the camera?
They didn't turn away. They just sort of
shuffled
up.
sideways.
They shuffled up. Yeah.
Interesting.
So that's what. Yeah. So it's.
I mean, the visuals have been redone. The rest of the game has not been touched.
No, but it's new code. Like it's not this. You're not just up-resing the same code. It's a remake, but it didn't change anything except for the translation.
It's a remake where the only thing they touched was the graphics.
Yeah.
I don't call that a remake. That's the definition of a remaster.
No, the remaster uses the original game code to up the visuals of and like kind of remaster everything. This is a remake. It's in the same way that they.
You can. I do not consider this a remake. You can. I do not. This to me is the definition of a remaster, making the game prettier while everything else stays the same.
So the Demon's Souls PS5 game is a remaster.
No.
Yes.
No, that's not.
By that definition, that's a remaster.
No, they rebuilt the areas in the game.
They rebuilt all the areas in this game.
No, they're exactly the same
They're exactly the same in
I thought
Demon's
that they had
Souls.
actually changed it.
No, they're all exactly the same. They just look way better.
I thought that they had changed the geometry and areas.
There's not
in
a single
game.
geometry change.
Well, then, I agree with you. Then that's just a remaster.
I don't. Remakes are you remade the game like.
But you still have to do the work if you just up-res it.
They didn't just up-res it. They remade all the assets.
No, but
and
I'm
the code
saying
is different.
in your situation, what they are actually doing for what you do consider remasters is the same thing. They're still working on the graphics. They still have to do work on the game.
Right, but they're just.
In your opinion, it sounds like a remaster is just running the same game on more powerful hardware, which actually means you don't do anything to the game at all.
Well, no, you have to actually add in the new textures to take advantage of the new power. You have to change.
But how is that different from what's done here?
Because you have to redo the assets completely. Like, these are not the same assets that existed in the original GameCube game.
We won't argue over this because I think people understand both our perspectives. But my perspective is this: if you do consider this a remake, it's the laziest remake in the last 5 years.
I imagine the people who had to draw everyone's backs would disagree with you.
Well, they didn't have to do anything else, so they should agree with me.
Well, they redrew every single thing on the screen. All these are new assets. Someone made all of these new.
I hear you. I understand that. I get that. To me, that does
like
not.
The Psycho remake, which is a shot-for-shot remake by Gus Van Sant, is like...
Wait, what is a remaster? So, in your opinion, give me 2 remasters.
A remaster would be... well, think of a game that just comes out and it just has everything sort of reskinned.
I can't. That's my point. I can't.
Well,
but you should be able to.
Well, yeah, but I got to think... Like, Street Fighter. When they remastered Street Fighter with the new graphics, the Udon visuals, remember that? It was it was the 20th anniversary or something, and you could remaster everything into they looked like comic book characters, and you could switch back to the original graphics or whatever. That's all the original code with some tweaks on it. That's a remaster. Or Halo Combat Evolved in the Master Chief Collection. That's a remaster because you can swap back and forth. It's the same code. Remaking this like that's the difference here is like they didn't just take this isn't just the GameCube game running on better hardware. They rewrote this game from the ground up to emulate. It's a reimagining. It's not like we're gonna fix all the things wrong with the game. Like you're not wrong.
They didn't fix anything.
Well,
they literally didn't fix anything that's wrong with the game.
Well, there's the thing. There are people who would argue, not me, but there are people who would argue there is nothing wrong with this game.
Well, there is. There's definitely.
I mean, I agree.
Wrong with this game.
But I'm just saying there are people. There are people who hold this game up as the like a platonic ideal of what the Paper Mario thing should be. And look, I think it's the best one, but like I just think that they took the series in a weird direction after this, and they should have continued iterating and improving on what this one did.
It started to have like themes after this.
Yeah, well, because it fell into the trap of that era of Nintendo after the GameCube being like, you can't make a sequel to something unless you have a dumb gimmick that like makes it like different, stickers or stuff like that. Or I mean, the Wii is sort of the king of that era. Whereas like I think most people, including us, would prefer could you just make this again but better and have a better story. And I definitely agree that the story for Paper Mario has never been better than this.
The writing in this is pretty clever.
It's very clever, and like it adds to the universe. And it adds like the new characters seem like it fits. Like it's, and look, I'm not saying that's easy. Like I did buy this and I installed it, I just didn't have time to play it. I do like this game a lot. And I'm interested in some of the differences in terms of the translation and localization that they maybe couldn't do back then, like the accurately representing the trans character, changing some of Bowser's insults to, I guess, be less offensive.
I didn't even notice the trans character thing. I know the story and everything, but I didn't know, like, playing it, I couldn't really tell the difference.
Well, because you're not a bigot.
Maybe.
So that's kind of but again, like, people are whining about that, but she was that in the Japanese original version, and they changed it for US because they figured we weren't ready for that. So they weren't wrong. So this is actually a more accurate translation.
Okay.
And then as opposed to like Bowser, I think called you an airhead in the original game, and now he calls you a lunkhead. I'm not sure. I don't know if airhead is really that
below.
Yeah, I guess that's air versus lunk. I don't know what I guess lunk doesn't mean anything really. But
so anyway, I already explained what the main mission is, which is basically rescuing Princess Peach again from being kidnapped and collecting the 7 stars and putting them in the door, the 1,000-year door, and opening the 1,000-year door. But there's also side missions in this game. So there's this little area in Rogueport where you can go, and there's like a pin-up board where you can take side missions. The side missions are stupid. It's like, hey, there's a guy over there. Go over there and get the thing from him and take it over here. And then when you do complete the missions, all you get are 30 coins. I found that the side missions in this were, one, dumb and pretty much pointless to actually do because I've never had a shortage of money in this game, and that's all you get for completing them. The way the leveling up works in this game is you collect the stars. You can see in the top right of the corner there. Once you get to 100, you level up, and that's it. It's always 100. So the currency, the XP in this game never changes. It stays at the same scale the whole way through the game, which is out of the ordinary. There are a lot of RPGs that do that still.
Well, here's the thing. Like, that's actually not true.
I like it, but...
Except normally the numbers get bigger, but the ratio stays the same. So you think
you're getting
more,
XP.
But it's really taking you the same amount of time to level up.
It's just scaled.
Yeah. This game is actually more honest about it.
Well,
and I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's easier to figure out, like, when you're going to level up. Because the other thing, too, is when you level up in this, you only choose from 3 categories. You basically choose from your health, your magic, and how quickly you can replenish your special attacks.
Yeah, it's not very complicated. I mean, you could argue it's elegantly simple.
Yes,
I guess.
I mean, it is.
Yeah.
I'm not slagging it for that. I like it. I like its simplicity in that way.
I remember the first time I realized that like the ratio of XP versus leveling up was all the same, and I was doing the same thing it was Lunar the Silver Star story on the PS1 version, and I was like 2/3 through the game, and I suddenly realized I'm doing the exact same thing I did 30 hours ago. It's just the numbers are bigger. Yeah. Like, everyone's losing the health at the same rate. Everyone's gaining XP at the same rate.
After 10 fights, I level up.
All the monsters are the same, but they're different colors. Yeah. They're all dying at the same rate. I'm like, this is the exact same thing I've been doing the whole time. It doesn't make any difference. And I kind of like had to go outside for a little while after that.
Well, this game, basically how it works is I said you get 100 and you level up every time you decide for those 3 categories. Once you defeat a boss, there's a lot of things that happen in the game. First of all, each time you defeat a boss, you get a crystal star. You also get a new special move. Like, the weirdest thing about this game, the first special move you get in this game is a healing special, which is so weird. Most games, it's like, hey, here's your first special. It's going to tear the screen in half with the most amazing attack you've ever seen. Instead, the first special you get in this one is this weird, like, shooting mini game to recover your health. I was just like, first of all, I just want to say, I forgot almost everything about this game. I mean, it's been 20-some years. I didn't play a ton of it back when it came out. It was like playing a new game to me. Like, I had forgotten so much about it. So a lot of this stuff was like a surprise again to me. But then the second one you get, once you defeat the first boss, is an earth tremor. And a lot of the specials in this are these crazy, intricate, like button, like almost like DDR style, like music and rhythm inputs. And so that's how you pull off your specials most of the time. You have like these special button inputs you have to put in like exactly on time across the timeline.
Mario's really impressed by this map.
What'd you say?
Mario's really impressed by this map. He's had that same...
Well, this is the map from Peach that opens up the 1,000-year door, and then this is where it explains to you, like, okay, you need to go collect those 7 stars to open up the door ultimately. Also, every time you defeat a boss, your star power goes up 1, so, like, basically that's your ability to pull off your special moves. And as you get further into the game, your special moves require more than one of those. So every time you defeat a boss, it goes up 1, and then you'll... At the same time, you'll get a new move, and usually it bumps it up 1. So, like, the Earth one, the second one that you get, it requires 2. Well, they give you that second one right there as you level up. And that's kind of how the game sort of plays out as far as its cadence is concerned. But the thing is like, some of the elements of this game are a product of the PS2 GameCube era, and they have long since been left in the dust. So, for example, Matt, the first boss that you beat, after you beat him, you're like, woohoo, I beat the boss. Now I can go back to the door with my star. No. You have to physically walk all the way back through the level that you just cleaned out and defeated.
Old school.
To get back to the place. Exactly. And it becomes this thing of like, do you remember that one pipe that you went down and you couldn't do any? Well, you better remember it, because if you don't, you're going to run around like a chicken with your head cut off for 45 minutes trying to figure out where in the hell you need to go next. Like, there's no fast travel, even though there are save points all throughout the game where they could have easily just created a fast travel point there. They still just say...
I do think it's important, if you're going to do a remake of something, no matter how much you're leaving everything alone, just add fast travel.
Yeah.
Just throw that in.
It's insane how much...
Or like speed options. Like even the stuff that like the remasters of the Final Fantasy games. They're like, Final Fantasy VIII remastered is just Final Fantasy VIII.
Yeah.
But I can hit that fucking button and make it go 10 times fast.
Yeah.
Which is like very important.
I would like that just for the text in this game. Like, you can speed up text, but not as fast as I would like to.
People talk about the remastering Xenogears, like Square. I'm like, well, you better put a text speed thing in there, because holy crap.
Yeah.
You forget how slow some of these old games were.
A lot of the design in this game is that. You accomplish something, you get something, and then you have to figure out, like, where in the hell I'm supposed to go. There was another instance where I think I ended up doing something out of sequence. Like, when I first got the Rogueport, I think the game expected me to stop in the shop there, and you go through this thing about, like, this missing contact lens. I never did that. I skipped the shop and went on into the game and, like, completed the first chapter or whatever and came back. I could not get the game to give me the contact lens. Like, all this... I remember that part from playing it the first time. I knew I needed to get it in the shop, and they're like... I went in the shop, they're like, oh, it's still on back order. It's still ordered. It hasn't come in yet. I'm like, where in the hell am I supposed to go? It turns out I needed to go and turn the first star in at the 1,000-year door before all that stuff would kick off and trigger.
There is fast travel.
How?
After unlocking the west side of town, you'll now be able to seek out the pipe room, unlocking fast travel for the remainder of the game.
I did that.
You'll need Flurry in your party to blow away the false wall and reveal a door in the second sublevel in the sewer. So there's...
I never found it.
Okay. Yeah,
have Fury.
There is fast travel, so they changed something.
Wow. Okay. I never found it.
It looks like it's actually kind of a secret.
Okay.
Like, there's a guide on how to find it.
That's insane.
That's a very interesting choice.
Yes. Well, the other thing, too, is that character in particular, once you get her, she uses, like, wind gusts. That's, like, her special ability. And it's hard to figure out where her abilities work, because it will just be one little corner, like, turned up off of the environment. And if you don't see that little corner turned up, that's how you're alerted that, oh, I need to use her special ability here to unlock a new way to go or whatever. I played this game, Matt, for like 18 hours and did not find that. So that's news to me. And that, but also, like, I've been out in the world, like, there's no fast travel points out in the world. Oh. And there's no fast travel pipes out in the world.
They might double as different. Maybe I assume it's save points.
Weird. The save points don't say anything about fast travel. Like, you would think they would have, like, the ability, like, grayed out or something like that. It's not there. Well, I'm glad I know that now, because it will literally completely change the quality of life of playing this game. I was running back all the way through the levels to get back and, like, turn stuff in, and then, like, a lot of the puzzles in this game are like, hey, like there's even some, like, Pikmin stuff in this. Like, there's this one level where you're in this, like, multi floored building, and there's a prison at the top. You need to free all these little creatures, and it turns into this thing where you're like collecting like groups of those creatures, and you need to take them through the pipes with you, but they won't go through certain pipes, and you have to figure out how to like get them from the bottom or from the top all the way down to the bottom once you finally free them out of the jail cell. Like, that's the type of stuff that you're doing in this game. And again, it's stuff that you did in games in the early aughts that just isn't really found in video games anymore. But really the thing that bothered me the most was the fast travel. So to know that that's actually in there, hallelujah. I still don't know where to find it. Like, I've opened up the west side of town, and I've gone down into the sewers there. You use your paper ability to fall through a grate, and you go down into the sewers there. I've been all through those sewers. I never found them.
Sounds like you need to use a particular character to blow a wall away.
I mean, I know what the character is. Like, the one character you get, it's like it's the woman with like that looks like an opera singer. She got the
right.
It's her. Yeah. Anyway, I'm glad I found that out. Too little, too late at this point, though. And let's talk about the combat. So you're watching that now. As Matt alluded to earlier, it is timing based. So basically, Mario has two basic attacks. He has his hammer and he has his jump ability. And depending on the enemy is what basic ability you want to use. So that enemy is in the air. So if they're in the air, you can't use the hammer on the enemies. You need to use the jump. Some enemies will have spikes on top of them. If they have the spikes on top of them, you can't use a jump. You need to use the hammer. As you play, you get upgrades to both of those. You get where you can jump across like 4 different enemies at a time. You get the ability to land a hammer attack that will take health off of any enemies on the ground or in the air. And a lot of the strategy is like looking at how the enemies are stacked, because the other thing too is that like certain attacks can't go past the first enemy. So if you use Mario's hammer, you can't attack the second enemy with the hammer. You can only attack the first one. But if you jump, you can, in fact, attack the second enemy first. And a lot of it is just the strategy. Okay, that guy's got a spike. I can't use the jump on him, so I need to use a hammer. But how is the sequence going to work out so that I can use my other partner? Basically, as you play, you have one other person in your party with you at a time. You have other people that you can swap in and out, but there's only 2 of you fighting at any given time. And you can swap them out mid-battle as well. All that stuff works. Another important component of the battle system is the crowd. So as you win each battle, you'll add a couple people to the crowd that's watching the fight. And there's crazy stuff that happens in the crowd, like enemies will show up, and if you don't hit X quick enough and defuse them, they'll come up on stage and like attack you. Or sometimes, if you have a friendly audience member, they'll give you like a power-up or a mushroom to recover your health, as long as you hit X in the amount of time. But the overall mechanic for the crowd is that if you win a battle, you add people to the crowd. If you run away from a battle, if you just don't want to fight it, or maybe they're too difficult, you lose people in the crowd for that. And the crowd matters because after every round of a fight, the amount of people in the crowd affects how quickly your specials refresh. So it basically increases how quickly the cooldown works. So if you just keep fighting the battles, eventually you have a massive crowd. And you can also do things on stage, like if you're in a place where someone on your team can't really do something that's actually going to help in the fight, they can basically appeal to the crowd, and that will give you bonus stars to also refill your special meter so you can pull off your specials more quickly. Later on in the game, like, it really becomes all about using your specials, because certain enemies don't, like, you can't use your jump or you can't use the hammer on them, and you have to start using the specials more and more, and that's when the crowd stuff really starts to become a lot more important in sort of the minute-to-minute battles in the game. What else? There's other weird stuff. Like, I got to one boss, I didn't have any health potions, I had to backtrack, like, all the way back. There's no stores out in the wild. So once you go on a mission and you're, like, trying to fight to the end and fight the boss, like, you go with what you brought. Or you have to go all the way back and buy stuff. Go back to Rogueport and buy stuff there and then come back and finish it off. But another part of the game is if you leave an area and it actually loads, the enemies respawn. So you have to consider all that stuff when you're trying to backtrack and go back and get health. It's not a hard game, but it's not a cakewalk either. Like, it definitely takes some strategy. You will definitely die a couple times. Like, I don't know, I probably died like 5 times maybe across the time that I spent playing it, the 15 to 18 hours I spent with it. And then, obviously, it's called Paper Mario, and a big part of the game is learning new paper abilities. So the first one that you learn is the paper airplane that allows you to fly across gaps. Eventually, the second one that you get is the ability to turn into a sheet of paper, which allows you to go through like bars in a jail cell, or slide between buildings, or, as I mentioned earlier, fall down a street grate down to the sewers below. You just basically turn into a sliver, and it lets you slide in between things. Eventually, those things are, for the most part, those things are used to open up new areas of the environments. Also, the people that you collect and add to your party, they all have special abilities. Like the first person you add to your party has the ability to scan enemies, to teach you their weaknesses. It'll show you how many hit points they have. Really important when fighting against a boss that you know how many hit points they have. The game doesn't tell you unless you use that scan ability. The other one I talked about has the wind gust ability. Her special's crazy powerful because it can blow enemies off the screen and literally kill them with one shot. And a lot of the game is managing those because you only have so many points to use those specials. You have to have the meter filled up by the crowd. All these elements working together to create what I think is a very, very satisfying combat engine in the game. But the one thing I will say, though, is like the depth perception in this game. Like they play tricks with it. Like there's sometimes you look at something, and because you can't move the camera, it looks like it's still. But then you just run into it, and it turns out that there's like a cut in it, and you can run in behind it. Like there's a lot of experimenting in this game that you have to do with the environments, with the hammer. You constantly have to use the hammer in the environments to be hammering stuff because there are things hidden in bushes, in trees. Like you literally, it becomes a game where you're just whacking everything you see with the hammer because some of the stuff that pops out of the bushes and stuff are like really important, really, really valuable things that you need to collect to make it through the game. So all you end up doing is just constantly whacking everything with the freaking hammer. There are slot machine things that pop up in mid-battle where you already have two of the three and the third one rolls, and that's just completely random, but sometimes it saves your butt. If you've run out of health, and if you hit that, it'll give you a health that'll help you get through the end of the battle. I don't know if like it's rigged so that like, hey, you have no health and you don't have any mushrooms to replenish your health. We're going to let you win this time. It feels a little bit like that happens like when you really need something. It seems like that you hit the slot machine, which is a little weird but handy if you're in a pinch. And then there are badges in the game that you collect, and they're kind of like the buffs. And again, you have an amount of points that you can assign to those. So like some of the more powerful buffs are worth 3 points, but you can only use it first. You can only use like 7. So you have to be smart. It's like I can have 5 badges that are all rated at 1 and then 1 2-rated badge, or I can just have 2 3-rated badges and 1. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. You have a certain amount of points and they all cost a certain amount of points. And there's a lot of strategy in which badges you equip. Like I was already in a point in the game where I could only equip like 3 or 4, but I have like 15. So you do have to be a little smart with how you do it. But like what I would find is that like I would use the badges to augment a weakness in a character, basically. So if there's something that Mario couldn't do well, I would use the badge to compensate for that instead of just using a badge to get more health or more magic points or something like that. And they do run the gamut. The badges they do make a difference too. As soon as you attach one to a character, you can immediately see the difference. As far as the visuals are concerned, they're beautiful. You're seeing the B-roll yourself. It's a gorgeous game. As Matt said, they've completely redone all the assets, so all the art looks great. They've redone some of the animation and the characters.
Looks more like paper now, too.
It does. It's definitely a step up from the GameCube version, without a doubt. Although the GameCube version still looks pretty damn good, I will say.
For sure. But
I went back and checked some footage, and I was like, that still looks pretty damn good for a 20-year-old game.
The fidelity on the backgrounds and environments, though, like everything really does look like paper.
Yeah. And I'm wondering, too, Matt, if they actually made these assets in 4K, and they're not displaying them yet. But eventually, because they're not going to want to remake this again, right?
No, I mean, I would imagine like you do that anyway, and like you kind of downsample.
It's like future-proofing it. So if you put it out later in 4K, you already have those assets ready.
They might. Certainly, the character models look good enough to do that.
Yeah. So we'll see. But my guess is they don't want to remake this game again, and so I think they probably did these in higher resolution than they
Vincent
need.
says there's a 4K option hidden in the code.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, I kind of figured that was the case. So when Switch 2 comes, they can probably just flip a switch and suddenly you're playing the game in 4K on Switch 2. That'd be my guess. I've already talked about the audio. They use gibberish for the conversation, and some of it is really annoying. In fact, my wife was like, nope, you got to put the headphones on. It's like, I can't take this anymore. And so that part of the audio is not great, but the music is awesome. I do think that they completely redid all the music for this too, because there's an option. One of the badges that you collect in the game lets you turn on the GameCube audio.
Yeah, they'd have to. I mean, we don't think about it that way, but the audio of that era, especially on those tiny GameCube discs, was generally compressed all to hell.
Yep. And so they have redone the music, and you can turn on the old tinny GameCube audio if you want to. You can turn on that badge, and you can hear the old version of the audio. But the sound effects are incredible, and sound effects are very important in this, because another part of the combat is blocking, like timing your blocks. And what I found is that, like, the audio cues, like, if I would play it with the audio up, I could block way better than if I had it off. Like, if my wife would come in the room, and I'd turn it down so she wouldn't get annoyed. It was harder for me to block.
I bet that's the wall.
What wall?
No, one of the. It looks like a breakable wall.
Oh. That is a secret there. Yeah. But that's not the one that you're talking about that goes to the fast travel. This isn't the west side of town.
Ah, okay.
So overall, the audio is fine. Again, there's no voice acting. It uses the Banjo-Kazooie gibberish. They didn't do a lot of work on it other than redoing the songs. For
Which is, I know there wasn't much else you could do, but did they? I wonder if they realized how annoying that was.
How annoying what was?
The Banjo-Kazooie style.
When they invented it, you mean?
Yeah, everyone.
Now everybody uses it.
They all used it constantly back then.
Yeah.
But I do very, very specifically remember it was because Banjo was like June 98, right?
Yes.
That was when I graduated college and moved back home and set all my stuff up. And the first big thing that came out was Banjo-Kazooie, and the computer was in my room, so my dad would come in to use the computer, which was right next to the TV, and he was working on the computer, and I started up Banjo, and like he just like stops typing and looks over at me and goes, "Really?"
Yep.
Like, all right, you got me on that one. Yeah.
I mean, this game has that for sure. They all talk that way. And some are okay. Some of them are just, for whatever reason, the loop that they use is just really grating and annoying. But the music is great in this. And again, they've redone the songs, so they sound a lot better than they did in the GameCube original. And graphically, you guys have been seeing the B-roll, so you know that it looks incredible as well. The other thing I would say, too, about this is it's great in handheld mode. It's one of those games that, like, the text is big enough to read in handheld mode. The action is big enough to see in handheld mode. You can time your attacks and your blocks, no problem playing it in that mode. You can also just put it to sleep if you want to and stop. While it does have save points and doesn't have autosave, so to speak, it doesn't matter to switch. You can just hit your home button and just put the Switch to sleep, and it doesn't matter whether you have like a save or not. It'll just, you bring it out of sleep and you're right where you left off. So it does work great as a handheld game, both as far as its design is concerned and as far as its visuals are concerned. And I think in general, it's a decent turn-based RPG, but it does show its age in a lot of ways. And I do wish that they had maybe focused a little bit more on quality of life improvements in the game and maybe not quite as much on the presentation, but I'm probably in the minority on that. Most people just would prefer that the graphics look as good as possible and blah, blah, blah. The game is $60, so they didn't go the $70 route, which makes sense because this game is a rework of a 20-year-old game. And I think if they asked $70 for that, a lot of people would probably be pretty pissed off about it.
What does Nintendo charge $70 for? What was that?
Zelda, and that was it.
That's it.
Yeah. That's the only one so far.
That's really the only one you can get away with on that.
As of right now, yeah. Until their games are in 4K.
Until you're in, well, they won't be. You know,
yeah, whatever they end up doing.
2-ish K. 2K checkerboardy.
Yeah.
Well, I'm skeptical, but
I will say this game started to wear me down. And again, maybe if I go unlock the fast travel, that'll change a lot of it. But it did start to wear me down with a lot of its contrivances and some of the older parts of the game. It's also a gigantic game. Yeah. I played this game for like 15 to 18 hours. I've only collected 3 of the stars so far. I still have 4 to go. Like,
yep.
My guess is if you finish this game, it's going to take you 40 plus hours to finish
I don't think I ever finished it on GameCube.
Yeah, it's a big boy. So you definitely get your money's worth. So the value is definitely there. It is linear. There's very little reason to go back and play it again unless you just want to wait 20 years and play it again like I just did. And wait till you forget everything about it to go back. But otherwise, everything plays out in a very linear fashion. All the puzzles always are solved the same way.
You want to go for the speedrun record.
Yeah. I don't know how you would speedrun this.
Oh, there's always weird things.
Yeah, some little glitches or whatever you can manipulate. But I did have fun with this. Not as much fun as I thought I was going to. I do think I was looking at this game a little bit with rose-tinted glasses compared to reality. But, you know, when it's 20 years between playing a game, I think that's understandable. You can't remember everything. I wish I could remember everything of every game I played. That would be freaking awesome. Unfortunately, that is just simply not the case. So
the number one time for the original Thousand Year Door is 2 hours, 16 minutes, and 18 seconds.
Oh my gosh! So they found some crazy
That's
game-breaking something.
Glitchless is 5 hours, 53 minutes.
Wow.
100% getting everything, 7 hours, 26 minutes.
Wow. How? Just the physical act of having to run all those places.
Even All Crystal Stars, 3 hours, 34 minutes. Now, the Crystal Stars one and the 100% one do allow glitches. Okay. So that's probably how they're doing that. The glitchless is completing the game with no glitches, no anything like that. That's 6 hours.
That's mind-blowing. That's really mind-blowing.
You watch these things, and these guys are absurdly good. I mean,
every little millisecond they shave off.
If you haven't, and if anyone hasn't, go watch Summoning Salt's new video about Tetris. The Tetris, the
where you can program it while playing Tetris.
Well, the Tetris world record, and how getting to level 29 was the whole thing or whatever, and how that level is unplayable because they drop too fast, and how over the years it stops being unplayable because people figured out different new things they could do and new ways to handle the controller, and now getting to level 90 is common. The original cap was supposed to be 1.2 million, and the current record's in the 6 million range. It's crazy. It's superhuman in places.
It's insane.
You'd be amazed with it, and I can't imagine it because to me, I'm just I get bored after I'm halfway through a game. Forget playing the same game 4,000 times.
Yeah.
You see these attempts, but it's very impressive, and it's most impressive to me on games like this where you think there's no way to make this go faster, but there always is.
Yeah. Vincent is saying that there's a pipe room you find in the town. Let's scroll back up here. You go to it after you complete each chapter. It'll unlock a pipe that takes you to the main area of each chapter. Okay, so it will just take you to where you start each chapter. So you still would have to backtrack.
You would still have to backtrack out of the dungeon.
Yeah. So there's still some quality of life issues there.
So why would you go back to a previous chapter?
Go back to
is there a reason to fast travel back to a previous location?
No. It's just, the problem is getting back after you finish the chapter. Because you go all the way to the end, you fight the boss, and you have to go all the way back to get back to where you go, back to Rogueport. And then Rogueport's basically the hub for the game. But it's still got to be at least a little bit better. There's got to be at least some functionality in this. So thanks for that, Vincent. But yeah, there's you can tell it's a 20-year-old game in some ways, but it still has held its age pretty well. As far as turn-based RPGs go, its combat system is just as interesting and innovative now as it was then. There aren't a lot of games that do this, unfortunately. It's kind of surprising there aren't more turn-based RPGs that kind of use that more active combat these days. But that just means that the next time a Paper Mario comes around, it's something worth celebrating and something worth playing. So I guess now the question is, should you buy it? I think if you like turn-based RPGs and you like Mario and you didn't play it when it came out for GameCube, I would say yes. I think you should buy it. I think you'll enjoy it. You may never finish it. You may be like me now twice. I'm 0 for 2 trying to finish this game. I didn't do it back in the day, and I don't think I'm going to be able to do it this time either. But if you have not played the earlier game, I think you'll get a lot more enjoyment out of it than I did. Just keep in mind that there are some contrivances. There are some parts of the game where you're like, games aren't really like that anymore. But for the most part, some of that stuff is for the good. That writing in this, I don't think Nintendo will ever do it again. There's so many scumbags in this game, bad people. You just don't see it. They're not enemies either. Some of them, you work with them in this game. Now in Nintendo games, the bad guy the bad guys are always the enemy. In this, they're your allies. They're people that you work with.
Unless it's a sporting event.
Right.
And then everybody's invited.
All bets are off. So again, this is kind of from a bygone era. I don't know whether we'll see it from Nintendo again.
Yeah, I remember you. I know you kidnapped my girlfriend, but we're having a go-kart race, so come on over.
Well, there's a joke in this where Bowser is like, "Hey, that's what I do. What are you doing kidnapping Peach?" And that's why he shows up. He's like, "This is my job to kidnap Peach, not yours." So there's a little bit of
we have a polycule thing going on here. What are you doing?
It's a little self-referential, and it definitely talks about things that most Mario games don't. So again, there's good ways and bad ways that it's a part of a bygone era, I guess is what I'm getting at. So you got to take the good with the bad sometimes. So anyway,
if I was gonna pick one of the Mario RPG permutations to play at this point, I think I would probably still pick Bowser's Inside Story.
Yeah,
I think that was the best of all the kind of that Super Mario RPG, Paper Mario, Mario and Luigi sort of that sort of. There's a through line through all of that a little bit, and I think Bowser's Inside Story was probably the peak of that.
I don't remember a lot about it.
It was pretty cleverly written. Didn't have the seamy underbelly of the Mushroom Kingdom element that this has, but it's pretty good. This is still the best Paper Mario, though, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, that's more of a condemnation of the other Paper Marios, but
yeah.
I don't even remember what the name of the one on the Wii was.
Yeah.
There was one.
If you've played this already, there's really very little reason to play it again. Because it is literally the same exact experience.
Unless you just don't remember it, because it was
like
2 decades ago.
Yeah. But if you played like the GameCube version like 6 years ago or whatever, or like picked it up, everyone said it was great, like I would not pick this up. So this to me, purely buying it at full price.
And if you picked it up 6 years ago, you paid $100 for it. So
yeah, I wonder too what'll happen to those prices now that this is out there.
It doesn't seem to affect them much,
really,
because the collectors want the physical games. They want the actual copies. They want a shelf that has the entire GameCube library on there.
All right. Well, there you go. That's Paper Mario: The 1,000-Year Door for Switch. Next up, game I teased a little bit earlier as a free Call of Duty killer.
I'm going to go make a sandwich.
And that game is called xDefiant. It is a free-to-play shooter. It is available for PlayStation 5, Xbox Series, and PC. It has gone through numerous betas at this point. It has been tested out the wazoo, and it shows. This game is really good. Like, shockingly good. It is 6-on-6. So far, they do not have ranked play in the game. There's like a little thing you can test for ranked play, but it's not there permanently yet. So right now, it's 6-on-6 unranked. It has 5 modes. 3 of them are like the same kind of. One's called Zone Control, one's your old favorite, Domination, and the third one is called Occupy. But they're all just different variants on capture the point modes, basically. Like one of them, there's 3 different points to capture and hold. One of them, there's 1 point, but it moves all over the map, and you capture it, and then it moves to another place. And then there's a third one where there's like a bunch of different things that you never... They all, after you played the game for 4 or 5 hours, they all start to feel pretty much the same. The other 2 modes that are in the game, one of them is called Hot Shot, which is basically their take on Call of Duty's Kill Confirmed. You only score if you
I can't believe you won that.
Won what?
You came around the corner and they basically stared at you for 5 seconds.
Oh. I don't know. I wasn't watching the B-roll, unfortunately. I was looking at my notes. So Hot Shot is basically Kill Confirmed, but there's like a VIP added to it, which gives it a little bit of a twist. It's like the person with the most items ends up increasing in speed, and then they score more points every time they pick up an item. Those are the 2 better modes. The other 3 are basically just all variants. And here you can see this is basically Overwatch, where you're escorting. You're either escorting or defending the bot as it makes its way across the map. My biggest criticism of this game in general is that it is very derivative.
You don't say.
Yeah. It is... you will struggle to find something unique about it other than...
Even worse in the sense that, like, if I look at like Overwatch, at least I can tell you who everyone is. I have no idea who I'm looking at here.
Yeah.
And I've played all these games.
Yeah. So
I like most of these games. I don't know who these people are.
So
Who is that?
Who is what?
Some woman just ran in front of you, and I have no idea.
Right now, I'm playing is like the female Sam Shepard. So
right. Sam Fisher?
Sam Fisher, sorry. Yeah.
Female Sam Shepard would be a very different game.
It definitely would be. So there's like there's DedSec, there's like the Splinter Cell crew, and like each faction in the game has 3 separate characters that you can choose from. And most of them are like, here's the guy and the girl version, and then the third one is like completely off the wall. That's usually how they work. However, each of those 3 characters in each faction has the same specials to choose from. So once you select the character from that faction, then you get to choose from one of 2 specials to take into battle with you. And no matter which character you play as from that group, you have to choose from those same 2 specials, basically. And to your point, Matt, you're right. Like it's really hard to tell who these characters are supposed to be. Like
I know they're just like people that are parts of the factions or whatever, but they're not even that. I guess that guy.
The Cleaner.
The Cleaner. So is he
from the Division? From
the Division.
Yeah. So the Cleaners are a faction in this, and so each faction, as I said, have their own specials. Like the Cleaners have this crazy thing, like where you basically become invulnerable, and you have this gigantic flamethrower. And it's how it usually works. Like, so one special is on L1, your other special is almost always a grenade or something, and that's on R1. And then for your full-on, like, finishers, you tap both of them together. And the finisher for the cleaners is that crazy flamethrower. The finisher for the Splinter Cell crew, you basically turn invisible, and you have a one-shot kill with a pistol that you have. But you're right, Matt. Like, when you're out on the battlefield, it's not like I see somebody, and I'm like, oh, no, there's a cleaner. Or, oh, no, there's a Splinter Cell character. I need to watch out for X, Y, and Z. The game is just madness. Like most Call of Duty matches, it's just insanity. And the other thing that adds to the insanity of this is that very clearly there's two different map designs in this game. There's open maps where it's just like a free-for-all and people can come from every direction. And then there are more controlled corridor-driven maps. And I'll just be honest with you, Matt, like playing the more open-world maps in this is like a nightmare. Like I've never been shot in the back, in the side, as many times as I have in this game when playing one of the more open maps. Because people can just come from anywhere. The spawning happens from pretty much anywhere because the points are moving in most of these modes. So it's not like your team always spawns on one end of the map and the other team always spawns on the other end of the map, because there's no team deathmatch in this at all. It's all point-based modes. So people are just spawning all over. There's no camping in this, which I think some people will appreciate, but it goes too far in the other direction. Like, I would argue 2/3 of my deaths, I never see who killed me. Shot from behind, shot in the back, or you're engaged with somebody. And
I assume there's no actual narrative to like. There's no explanation of why all these people are fighting each other.
No, there's no cinematic when you start.
Like, what in the actual hell is Libertad doing here?
No, there's none of that. It doesn't explain any of it. It's just like, hey, here's a bunch of all-star Ubisoft characters that you aren't really all-stars.
Very loose definitions of all-stars. Yeah.
Yep. So here's the thing, though. Like, 10 of the maps are the open maps, and there's only 4 of the more corridor-driven, curated maps to play. And so generally, like, 10 out of 14 times that I play this game, I'm not a big fan of the map that I'm playing on. Although the maps look gorgeous, and the game runs like greased lightning. It never slows down. It has 120 hertz option, and I'll just say that as soon as I did that, my KD went up drastically. So make sure you turn that on. It doesn't turn on by default. Like, it doesn't detect your TV and know it can do 120 hertz and automatically turn it on. You have to physically, manually go in and turn that on. I played this for hours before I ever did that, and as soon as I did, my KD started going up. This game is brutal to learn. It's free to play, and so there's just so many people playing it. And one thing about it is, like, the unlocks are okay. Like, unlocking new characters takes forever, but the gun unlocks, if every decent match you have, you get at least a new unlock for your gun. Every match, you'll get a new scope, you'll get a new, like, underpiece to, like, or a grip or whatever. Pretty much every time you have at least a decent round, you'll unlock a new piece of gear for the gun. As you use the gun, much like Call of Duty, the gun levels up and you get new attachments to it. Well, some of the guns that you unlock later are way better than the guns you get first. Like, I found that, like, the assault rifles in this are underpowered in general. I also thought the sniper rifles were underpowered in this in general. SMGs and shotguns rule the day in this game. Somebody looks at you with an SMG, you die, it feels like. So there's definitely some balancing that still needs to be done, despite the fact that this has been in early access for like a year at this point. So generally, most of the maps I'm not a gigantic fan of. Less than half of them I really liked, but they look good, it runs well. And to be fair, that's an opinion thing. You may like maps where it's just constant chaos and people are constantly coming from behind you and you have to spin around at all times because someone's going to shoot, like, right there. Like, there's just people all over the place in this game. You never know where the danger is going to come from, so you just have to stay on your toes and keep spinning on a swivel, basically. It's a free-to-play game, so there's a battle pass to work through. No surprise. Again, the unlocks are great. Like, the new guns are slow to unlock. The new characters are slow to unlock. I think I did some math, and there are some things that are a little bit egregious. Like, DedSec isn't unlocked when you start the game. You have to unlock them through play. And they want, like, 700,000 experience points to unlock DedSec. Each kill is worth 100 XP. So you do the math. Like, if you win a match, you get around 1,000. Mm-hmm. So you have to win 500...
700 times.
Yeah. So, look, they're not...
For DedSec?
Yeah. They're the gadget guys, of course. So, look, they're not going to put the new characters or the factions on a platter for you to unlock. You have to work at them. And the other thing, too, is if you just want to unlock DedSec, it's $10. So it's a free-to-play game.
Probably worth $10 of your time.
If you want
DedSec for some, if you're that one person.
So look, there's a little bit of skeeve here, but this is a free-to-play game. You don't have to pay anything for this game. So I can understand a little bit of shady monetization practices when you're not asking for anything. I've played this, I don't know how many hours at this point. I haven't spent a penny. And I've had a good time. I will say this. When you first start, it's tough. Like, you will get your ass kicked, one. But two, the guns that you have are way underpowered compared to the guns you're going to go against. Stick it out. Once you get, like, your first gun with at least 4 or 5 attachments on it, and, like, your aiming stability goes up, you'll start to turn the corner. And then you unlock your second gun. And if you're like me and you usually use assault rifles, like the AK-47 is the second gun that you unlock. And it's way better than the M14 that you start with. And then once you get 5 attachments on that, then you're starting to cook with gas. Suddenly you're competitive. Then you get the third one, which I think is like the GC3 or something like that. Way better than the AK-47. So there is motivation built into the game to make you keep playing and keep trying to get better and keep unlocking new stuff. And again, on a per-gun basis, the unlocks are fair and frequent. But if you want to unlock new characters, like I played a ton and only unlocked 2 characters the whole time. Just to let you know kind of like the squirrel wheel that you're going to be on with this game. But again, it's free. And it's available for PC, PlayStation 5, and Xbox Series. It is, I'll say this, it's the closest thing to Call of Duty. One thing that I will say that I don't like as much, the traversal's not as good as Call of Duty. The mantling's not as good. You do have a slide. But, like, climbing over stuff can be a little bit awkward and take a little bit longer than you want to. The other thing, too, is you may have noticed that, like, when you run, you're not propelling. So in Call of Duty, you can feel each footstep when you're running. Like, you get shoved forward with each step. In this, you just run at the same speed at all times. And, like, there's no bob to the gun. It's like you're basically skating across the environments. And that feels a little weird after playing Call of Duty any significant amount of time where the traversal and the running is far more realistic. But it is just, it's one of those games. It's like, you reload real fast. Like, even in the point-based modes, like, you never have to wait to respawn longer than, like, a handful of seconds or whatever. It is very much like Call of Duty, where it's like, match is over. Let's get them back in the match real fast so that we don't lose them. So they have managed to hit a lot of the tenets of Call of Duty that have made Call of Duty the best-selling game in the industry for a long time, and the game is completely free. So I do recommend xDefiant. Even if you aren't a fan of Call of Duty, like, give this a spin. It's free. It's not a huge client. It's not going to take up a bunch of space on your hard drive. If you are a Call of Duty player, I also recommend it. You'll see there are slight changes and tweaks to this. You may make you like it more than Call of Duty ultimately. And there is crossplay. You can see I lose Dinfire on crossplay. That's one thing I hate about crossplay. I lose like my tag. You always end up with like the name of whatever the account is. Like my Ubisoft account is SLG Shane. So now when I play this game, I'm SLG Shane instead of Dinfire. But I've had a lot of fun with this game. I'm going to continue to play it more. Like I said, there's 14 maps. That's enough variety at launch. That's pretty impressive, particularly for a game that's free. There are 5 factions. There's only 4 when you first start playing it. You have to unlock DedSec. Good luck with that. I'd probably just spend the $10 if you really want it badly. The other thing I would say, too, is that there aren't enough special abilities. Like, you can see this character, you have the ability to see through walls. You can see enemies through walls. This is the best one. Like, it is so much more effective as far as a team-based, like, ability than any of the other ones in the game. Like, I tried all the characters. I just ended up settling on this one and playing this one pretty much all the time. And I'm not alone. When you finish a match, at least 4 out of 6 characters are this one. So everyone else has kind of figured it out as well. So they could maybe be a little bit more inventive with the special abilities for a lot of the characters in the game, but they're a little bit hog-tied because they need to make sense within the context of whatever IP that they're coming from. So obviously the cleaners have the flamethrowers, that makes sense, and that's cool. But some of the other characters, it's like, nah. Like, one of them's like just health. It's like just replenishing your health or the teammate's health or whatever. And then one of them like has shields. And at first I thought that was really pointless and dumb, but the more you play it, the more you start to realize that people who are good with shields can literally turn the tide of a match. So some of them work, most of them do not. I ended up finding that one character that I ended up using, and there's a male and a female variant of it. So once I unlocked the male variant, it starts with the female. I started using the male variant, and I just haven't looked back, and I can just keep playing with that faction and those abilities. So there you go. That's xDefiant. Again, It's free.
I'll wait until they branch out for new factions.
Yeah, I don't know what else there is though.
Oh, you put in Beyond Good and Evil. You put in
that would be kind of cool.
You put in the crew, plays a car, just car running around with a gun.
Assassin's Creed.
Assassin's Creed. Yeah, you do. Especially you do Templars. Templars can look like anything.
You're right. Yeah, it doesn't matter. They literally are anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rayman.
I mean,
who gives a shit?
It could be fun. I mean, there's no
have some fun with it.
They're not even trying to tie this together.
No, just go crazy.
Just go crazy. Yeah.
Just Dance. Like all the characters have that crazy neon coloring, like all dressed as pandas and shit.
They should have done at least one faction like
fun
that.
With it.
They should have had at least one.
It looks so boring.
It does, yeah. But imagine you're right. If like the Just Dance was like one of the factions, you're right. It wouldn't just all blend together. Yeah. Like I said when we first started discussing it, like the biggest criticism I have of the game is that there's just not that much that sets it apart. It's very
Skull and Bones,
very
Pirates.
derivative. Well,
yeah.
Vincent says better free-to-play option, this or Warzone. Oh. Well, I think that depends on what you like to play. Because Warzone, and that's a little bit of a cop-out, but Warzone is like Battle Royale. It's a completely different style
there
of game.
There are people saying they should add Battle Royale to this one. Like, yes, they should rework the entire game from the ground up. Good suggestion.
It's not that easy.
Well done.
Yeah, it's really not that easy. So there are two different styles, and I'm not a big Battle Royale shooter guy, so I would probably prefer this, shockingly. That may surprise you.
Blood Dragon would be good. JG Forcebackers is Blood Dragon. Like, there's a lot of more interesting Far Cry factions you could have picked.
Yeah. But there's so many differences in this too. Like there's no vehicles in this. And in Warzone you can jump in tanks and helicopters, and it just all depends on what you want. Like comparing this to like Call of Duty multiplayer and not Warzone, I mean, that's a tough one. I think really it's going to be up to your taste, like what you like more. I think there are positive traits in each one that the other doesn't have. So, and again, I know it's a little bit of a cop-out, but I do think that that's the truth. I think Call of Duty players will enjoy this game no matter what, but I do think some of them will still say, I still like Call of Duty more. And I think some of them will be like, wow, like this actually, I like this more than Call of Duty. It's a little bit more fast-paced. It feels like the characters run faster in this by default than they do in Call of Duty. Not 100% sure. I haven't tested it, but it feels that way when you play it. But again, I don't like how it feels like you're just like, you're not running. It's just like you're moving like dead still through the world. Like, I think it helps maybe with like sighting up.
Quake.
A little bit, yeah. I think it maybe helps with sighting up enemies a little more quickly. So you don't have to wait for that bob or whatever from the running. But it just feels weird. If you played a lot of Call of Duty, the last few Call of Duties, and you know what the traversal's like in those games, this is nothing like that. And I think it was a conscious decision. So, and it does make the games feel a little bit different to play. And I think that's good. There needs to be a difference other than the fact that one costs money and the other one's free. And it will be interesting if like something like this catches on, Matt. Like, what does that make Activision or Microsoft do with Call of Duty multiplayer? Like that's why you need games like this. You need competition to push Activision and Microsoft to change and improve Call of Duty. So it's good to see stuff like this. Even if none of you guys play it, I'm glad it's out there. So that's XDefiant, again, available for PC, PS5, and Xbox Series. Bushy Wookie says, did they really just make a wall hacking an ability? Yeah, they do. And it is on a cooldown. But it rebounds real fast. Like it rebounds so fast that almost any time I went to use it, it was ready. So they maybe could tone that down a little bit. It probably should not refill as fast as it does. But it is on a counter, on a timer. You can't just use it all the time, but you can use it a little bit more often than you should be able to.
Vincent notes it'll be interesting to see what the big announcement is for XDefiant at the showcase.
Probably a faction.
Star Wars.
You think they'll put Star Wars in there?
No, I don't think they would do it.
That would be.
I don't think they could get the license.
That'd be an expensive DLC.
But they do. I mean, they do have the Star Wars license.
Yeah. But only for specific things.
Probably. Right. But like you could put her in as a guest character or something.
Yeah, you probably could. Yep.
Like anything to get people to notice this game. Like it's so by the numbers.
I mean, the other thing I'll say too, Matt, is that like the finals is a better game. It just is. It's more creative. It's more unique. There's more emergent moments in there. There's more things that happen in there where you're like, holy shit! Like I never guessed that would happen.
And it's one of the few games that that doesn't have a worse title than XDefiant. Or like, the Finals is a bad name.
It is, yeah.
But it's still better than XDefiant.
It is. It is hanging on by a thread right now. The Finals, which does not bode well for XDefiant.
No.
Like,
why is it called that?
I don't know. There's no explanation for it. I don't get it.
Like it's like someone forgot to name it something.
I know. I know.
Like it had a code name in the database, and I was like, oh, I don't know, XDefiant.
I know.
It's like how X-Play got its name.
Yeah.
Don't name your project X something you'll never get around to it.
Yeah, it was like the dumbest name ever, and we just never came up with anything better, and so we just named it X-Play.
It was an abbreviation of extended play because it was extreme.
Right, yeah.
And then we just never came up with a better name, and then the graphics package was already done, and we're like, I guess that's what we're called.
It's funny. So anyway, there you go. That is xDefiant. And with that, it's time for our Sneaker of the Week with New York Sneaker Society. What's up, everyone? Shane here, and one thing you may not realize about me is that I am a total sneakerhead. That's right, I've been collecting Nike sneakers since the early 90s. My favorites are Air Max 95 and Air Max 97. Now, one thing that's different about me from your typical sneakerhead is that I actually wear the sneakers, and because of that, they can get dirty. And that is where New York Sneaker Society comes in. Using their advanced shoe cleaning products, I turned an old pair of Nikes that looked like this into this. With their cleaning products, your sneaker life can go from a year to 5 or more. I know that. I have shoes that are like 30 years old that I still wear because I've cleaned them. You can also lower your carbon footprint, by keeping your kicks looking fresh. For my daily drivers, I also appreciate New York Sneaker Society's Refresh Spray to keep them smelling great and staying crisp. Head to nysneakersociety.co/sifted to clean your shoes like a pro at home and get 10% off your order. That's right, that's nysneakersociety.co/sifted for 10% off. That's right, people. Go to nysneakersociety.co/sifted, SIFTD, because I know the ad says you get 10% off if you use that URL, but you don't. You get 15% off. You're talking about some of the bigger packages at New York Sneaker Society. That can save you significant money. So make sure you use that URL, nysneakersociety.co/sifted. Get your 15% off. And again, I want to mention, you don't need to have a big commitment there. They have smaller kits that just give you the essentials for $15 or whatever. But then they have the full shebang for $45 that will make you basically go and clean all the shoes that are in your closet that you have ever owned, and you will revive some of those shoes and wear them again for the first time in years. I've been doing it, believe me, I know firsthand. Again, go to nysneakersociety.co/sifted. Make sure you use that URL to get 15% off. One of the fun things we do with this sponsorship from New York Sneaker Society is we expose you guys to some under-the-radar games. It's called our Sneaker of the Week. It's a smaller game that's starting to build some groundswell. People are starting to get interested in it. Some of you guys are watching trailers for it on Sifted or talking about it on Sifted. And this week's game is one of the best, I think, we've ever had in this. And keeping in mind that Indica was one of our Sneakers of the Week, which I think is an Indie Game of the Year contender. I also believe that about this game. It is a game called Haunty. It is available right now on Game Pass, so there's no commitment for those of you who are subscribing on Game Pass, and it is one of the coolest, most moving games I have played in quite a while. So I'll just be honest with you, I am not 1,000% sure on what's going on in this game. I've played 4 hours of it at this point, maybe a little bit less, and basically how it starts is you have died. You don't know how you've died, you don't know where you come from, you've died, and you wake up in this crazy, surreal world. And you meet this other spirit that appears, there she is, right on cue. You meet this other spirit, and I don't know if you fall in love, but you guys at least become friends. And then something happens, and she is taken away from you. And you are sent down into the depths. I don't know if it's hell. Some of the environments in this game are biblical. One area is called Eternity. And so I don't know if they send you to hell, but the objective of the game is you are sent down to the depths of something, and you need to make your way back up. You need to ascend back up to get back to your love. And that's the basic premise of the game. Now, how the game plays is, it is a twin-stick shooter. You move with one stick, and you shoot with the other, but it's not the crux of the game. So as you play as this little spirit guide, eventually you, can earn hats and stuff like that to put on your character model, and tiaras and crowns and stuff like that to give them a little bit of a different flavor. But basically you have just a couple abilities. You have the ability to shoot in any direction using the right stick. You have the ability to dash. And the dash becomes very important because the way the game is designed, the level design, is that you need to stay on the path. If you get off the path, you have X amount of time before you will die. And it's very cool how they handle it. So as soon as you go off the path, the music starts to get like a little warbly. It's like an audio cue, like, hey, you maybe shouldn't do that. And then these spooky eyes start popping up in the environment, and then everything starts to go dark. And if you don't make it back to the path before it goes completely dark, you die. And that's like the basic premise of the game. Now, there are hidden things that you find. They're like these stars, but they actually kind of look like pentagrams. And as you collect those, you go to this interface where there are like constellations, and you use those pentagrams to put into the star constellations. And then once you do those, that is the way that you actually level up and give your character new abilities. The other thing that you can do in the game besides shoot and dash is you can possess enemies, or anything in the game really. If you shoot it enough with your gun, you will take control of it. Trees, inanimate objects, whatever, each one of them does something. You can also take control of other enemies in the game in that way that are way more powerful than you are alone with your shooter. So there's all this strategy involved. But really, what struck me about this game more than anything is the emotional heft to it. Like, the music is incredible. You're already seeing the visuals. There's nothing that looks anything like this game. But the music and the way they present everything, like the first hour and a half of this game literally blew me away. Like, the way that they ingratiate you to this girl that you meet, when they split apart, it hurt. Again, this game is called Haunty. I can't say that I've ever played a game like it before in my life. I've only played a few hours of it. It has affected me in ways I never dreamed it would. The music in this is just incredible, and how it's dynamic, and it changes based upon what's going on. There's so many cool secrets to uncover. Sometimes you're just shooting your gun randomly into stuff, and it just uncovers stuff that you didn't know was there. Again, you can possess almost anything in this game. You can basically take it over and haunt it. And then each thing in the game has its own set of attributes and abilities that can either be attacks to take down enemies. Like, you can take over that enemy right there and then go through the world and, like, kill everything with it and then go back and then just swap back to your other character. Like, there's a lot of strategy that goes into it. It's not as gameplay heavy as this trailer would lead you to believe. There's a lot of contemplative moments in this where you're just thinking, or you're just absorbed into the environment, or just crazy awesome stuff is happening. Again, this is called Haunty, Hauntii. It is available for all platforms, but as I said, it is on Game Pass right now. So if you don't want to commit a lot of money to it, you totally can just get Game Pass for $15, and you can play Hellblade 2, you can play this, you can play a bunch of other awesome stuff as well. But I highly recommend it. Haunty, one of the best sneakers of the week we have had yet here on GameFace. Again, a big thanks to New York Sneaker Society for allowing us to expose you to these games. And I will say, it has been very rewarding to keep getting messages from you guys thanking me about turning you guys onto Indica. Like, I feel like that's a very important part of my job, is exposing you guys to really cool new games that you like. And when I do that and you guys respond, I feel great. And I'm just telling you, if you do the same thing with Haunty, I think you're going to come back to me in a week or two and be like, thank you, Shane. I never would have played that game, and now I'm glad that I did. So, did you get a chance to give it a whirl at all, Matt?
I only heard of it when you came over here today and told me
I've been
about
tracking this for a while. Like, the first time I saw it, I was like, whoa. And that was just the art style that got me the first time. And they put out like 4 trailers for it eventually, and I started learning a little bit more about the game. But no matter how many trailers you've watched for this game, it's not going to prepare you for playing the game. It's just not. There's no other game like it. It's Haunty. It's available for everything. It's also on Game Pass. I highly recommend it. Eric Carmen has asked if I've talked about Crow Country yet. We have not, actually. And that might be a candidate for next week's Sneaker of the Week. But we have not talked about that game yet. And that's another one you should probably keep your eye on if you're into smaller indie games that kind of try to do some new things and different things from what you're playing with a lot of the mainstream games that you're buying for your $60 and $70. And with that, it's time for the last topic of GameFace 389. We're going to talk briefly about a game called Homeworld 3 that Matt has been playing. I'm just going to say right off the top, neither Matt nor I are crazy RTS freaks. No. And I'll just say personally, I do not feel qualified to review an RTS. I just don't. Like, if somebody came to me and they're like, I'll give you $10,000 to review this new RTS, I'd be like, I can't do it. I don't feel comfortable doing it. And Matt, better versed than I am in RTS games.
Still not good at them.
Sure, but still not.
I don't think I've ever won an online match of an RTS.
Oh, really?
Ever.
I think maybe if I played against somebody else who like was playing with me for the first time, I maybe
I've been playing since the Command and Conquer 1.
Yeah.
It's like I was on what was that service? That original. Because I had a friend who was like a beta tester.
What, the EA thing that they had?
There we go. Well, no, it was.
If I need a 10K to review a game, I'll do it. You won't like it, but I'll do it.
Yeah. I can't remember. It was one of the.
Today says I like Dawn of War. I've heard that before, actually.
It was one of the first online like Portal gameplays. Like you play that and Warcraft and stuff, and it was passed around here and there and then disappeared. It was from like 90, right around the time Call of Duty, Command and Conquer and Warcraft 2 were big. And like you had to like subscribe to these services that were basically portals that would match you with people and you'd play them, because that didn't exist in the actual individual games yet.
Yeah.
It wasn't GameSpy, but I think GameSpy bought them eventually.
It's kind of the same idea, though. Yeah. GameSpy, rest in peace. There's another one that's gone. I actually worked for GameSpy for a little bit. Did some freelance reviews for them for a while.
Yeah, and it was, I don't know what the stars are.
Well, it looks like they're censored.
Yeah, whatever it was a dirty word, apparently. But yeah, I've been playing back then. And even back then, I couldn't do anything. It was ridiculous. But I've played a lot of them.
But what I was getting at
I'm just not very good at them.
What I'm getting at is that Matt is a casual RTS player. And I'll be honest with you, I feel like most of the people on Sifted are also casual RTS players, the vast majority of them. So I think that Matt's opinion on Homeworld 3 is going to have some value for you guys.
Yeah, and I have played the other Homeworlds. Like, I don't think I finished them necessarily, but I played them back in the day. And I played the remasters a little bit, and I played a little bit of the new Deserts of Carcoon or whatever.
Yeah.
That
I can't pronounce it either, but I know what you're talking about.
I should, because that planets through the whole series. And then this is like a continuation of all that, because Homeworld 2 kind of ends the series a little rather definitively. Like, the main story of Homeworld is that like this desert planet, Karak. That's right, Deserts of Karak. There's a desert planet called Karak, not Dune, not Arrakis.
Says I'm so casual. I play when there's a pause feature. I'm right there with you, man.
Well, good news. There is one in this. You can actually freeze time in this game to issue orders.
That's handy.
And right. You can control how fast everything goes and all that. I mean, that's pretty standard these days. But basically, it's about this desert planet, and they find this buried ancient spaceship with a warp core in it that lets them jump to hyperspace, and they plug this woman into it named Karen Sajet, S''Jet. That's apparently a name on this planet. And she becomes sort of the internal consciousness and the command of this mothership. And you are technically playing as her in the games. You control the mothership, and sort of you manufacture ships and send them out and stuff. And by the end of this, you have to fight off the people that like control the planet. In the first game, you fight off the people who control the planet that you're originally from, but forgot about because it's been that long. Yeah. And then the second game, you fight off kind of these like insurgents or whatever. And by the end of the second game, basically, she's rediscovered hyperspace tech and these huge, like, amazing gates that let you jump from different parts of the galaxy all over the place, and galactic civilization is flourishing and is, basically a galactic, like, era of prosperity and peace has been established, and she's the leader of it, and it's all really great. Homeworld 3 promptly dismantles that. Because it turns out there's one section of the universe that has all these, a section of the galaxy that has all these anomalies in the jump gates, and people are dying, and you just don't go there anymore. And Karen goes there with the mothership to investigate and never returns.
Lost Karen.
So you play as this woman, Imogen Sajet, who is like her protege. And there's a sister ship to the original mothership, and she plugs herself in. The beginning of the game is entirely her plugging herself into this ship and learning how to like be the ship, and that's kind of your tutorial sort of thing. There's some very impressive visuals here in the in-game.
It's gorgeous for an RTS, man.
In-game, but like I will say this, like these cutscenes are kind of not great. They're fully CG, but like the other homeworlds, especially Deserts of Karak, they were fully animated, but they had this like painterly look to them. Like they were 3D, but everybody looked like they'd stepped out of an oil painting, and it was a very unique look, and it kind of defined what Homeworld looks like.
Yeah.
And I think it came from, the original game being kind of low budget enough that it had that kind of look to the art.
Almost like a smear.
Yeah. And so, but they it was like, particularly Desert Karak looked like they kind of animated that in 3D, and it was very striking.
Yeah.
This is very standard.
Yeah.
And like,
it looks very generic.
And like there's thing, like you'll see, like they spend most of the cutscenes. I'm only about, I don't know how many missions I'm in on this, because actually they do a really good job of flowing you from one thing to the other without letting you realize that you've moved to the next mission.
Oh.
I mean, it's kind of obvious because you jump to a new system or you do some new objective, but they never like stop you down and be like, mission complete, click this to go to the next. They just keep you playing.
Yeah.
And it's something, that carries you through it a little better. But most of the cutscenes are very slow, very talky, with a bunch of people that seem rather bored to be on one of the most cutting-edge starships in the history of humanity, and like slowly circling around her, floating in a tank in a skin-tight bodysuit.
Yeah.
And that's sort of the whole thing. Like it's the tone is weird for Homeworld. There's parts of it that feel like the people who made this never played Homeworld. In terms of the story, in terms of the writing, and sort of how this is supposed to work, it's dull. It's just dull. And I would not describe Homeworld as dull.
Yeah.
Normally.
I mean, I was disappointed in the scores for this. I saw my fantasy team, and it's like a high 7 right now, which is way lower than most games in this series.
So, like, the in-game stuff is better, I would say. Like this is the beginning where they load this, but the whole section here where you're kind of testing out the mothership, you can look down at the ground, and so much stuff is like there's hundreds of ships in atmosphere with you, and there's stuff flying in and there's stuff flying in and out down there. You'll see there's like cargo trains going back and forth. If you look closely at some of the buildings down there are elevators on the outside of the buildings going up and down, little cars going in and out of the.
Did they need to do that?
I mean, this is probably the most graphically intensive section I've seen so far. Everything else is just asteroids and starships. Also, when this first came out, it had a lot of chugging in it on my computer. Like it was clearly like figuring out shaders and sort of. And there's been an update, I think at least one since then. And when I played it the other day, it was fine. It was silky smooth, 120, no problem. Everything maxed out. Even though the benchmark drops to 30.
Weird.
Once in a while, but I've never seen it drop like that in the actual game.
So what's the objective of the game?
So you're going out to find. The idea is for here you're going to go out and try to find Karen, and find the other ship.
Yep.
But as you're leaving, the commanding officers of the leaders of the humanity thing basically say, okay, you can't talk anymore. Like no more communication from your ship until you finish your mission, because what you and no one else knows except a select few is that anomalies have been opening all over the outer rim, and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people are dead because something has basically figured out how to weaponize hyperspace. They're opening the hyperspace gates, firing out these energy beams that are just destroying the planets and like ripping them up and killing everyone. And they don't know why. They don't know how. They don't know who's doing it. Your job's to go. Basically, you have to go out, pick up some repairs for your ship, get a production module glued on, and fly out there and figure out what's happening. And of course, I think anyone who's ever seen a sci-fi movie or sci-fi story kind of know you're looking for someone, and it's suddenly they disappear, and you're looking for them now, and all of a sudden there's bad things. Things are attacking. Guess what happened? Yeah. So there's some other force out there that is against humanity, and you have to sort of figure it out.
What's the moment-to-moment gameplay like?
I mean, it's very similar to the old ones where you are, your mothership is sort of your home base, and that's where you produce everything, and you can you have a production module that lets you make. Early on, you just make scout ships and resource gatherer ships and interceptors and like kind of things like that. So you're kind of a little factory ship. The ship can defend itself. It has turrets that pop up. And again, the visuals on this are very impressive in the sense that like when you really zoom in, you see the turrets pop out of the ship and unfurl and do all that. I mean, it's all very accurate and detail oriented. These are the resource ships. When you send them to go mine something, all those little things on the bottom drop out and fly out and
actually go and mine.
They do all that stuff. It's very neat. So basically, you have, I mean, it's 3D space. That was one of the big things of the original game, was that it actually was 3D space, and you could go up and down, and you had to choose a place in 3D space to send your ships, and formations were a big issue there. They still are here. You have to choose your formations based on, you want them in a claw formation, which is going to maximize their firepower. You want them in a linear thing, it'll keep the stronger ships up front. It just sort of depends. And honestly, it's really more, so far at least, it's more about type of ship versus type of ship. It's more of a rock, paper, scissors thing from what I've seen. And eventually you get little capital. You can have carriers and stuff. If the ships get damaged, you can send them to dock at the nearest thing, and they'll fly through and come out with their health restored. Or you just keep pumping them out. There's not really... You do have a persistent fleet. Like, when you go to the next mission, whatever fleet you had at the end of the last mission will still be your fleet.
Okay.
The cap on the fleet is a little low. Like, I'm a little surprised. I was a little surprised at how fast I hit the cap even early on, and then you have to kind of dismantle ships or get rid of ships to build better ships as you move on. And I kind of like wanted to keep my old. There's no like progression system that I can like. You don't get like veteran ships or anything like that as far as I can tell. But like it's still sort of like, why don't I just keep building my armada bigger? Yeah. And actually, you can do that. The one thing I will say for this game is there's a you'll go in the difficulty selection. There's story, easy, medium, and hard. And so you can pick whatever you want. And then there's a custom thing where you can go in and you can choose to make the mothership invincible. You can choose to make everything invincible. You can choose to have infinite resources. You can remove the fleet cap if you want. Like, you can play this game completely invincible with no limitations and just walk right through it if you want to. I've been playing it on medium. It hasn't been that difficult. And you can see here, like, one of the interesting things here, like you saw that dragging box, like it dragged a red box and everything. That just tells all your units that are highlighted. It just says attack anything bad in this area. Oh, and they kind of go off and do their own thing.
Cool
they're pretty self motivated. Wow, this doesn't look as good as it does on my.
Well, your computer.
Like that explosion was awful compared to what it looks like on my computer. Yep. And then, like, and so you do the usual RTS stuff. You got numbered groups. You can have people be parts of different groups. You want a mixed unit. That's cool. Like, I've had I have my interceptors. I got my recon. I got my scouts. I got my carrier. But like, if I want to send like a mixed group of scout and recon and interceptors, I have group 2, which is half and half. Send them out. That's a good thing. Everyone's got an upgrade you can spend stuff on that, like. It's not like every mission you got to redo the upgrades. When you decide to spend 500 units of resource units to upgrade the interceptors permanently to be able to drop their armor to fire twice as fast, they get that forever. Yeah. And those abilities are very important. Like, normally I am not a special ability that drops my defense person, but those interceptors. Yeah, they'll chew anything up in one pass. Because the big thing about this is, like, basically it's a little dull in the sense that the combat is just the things are passing each other and shooting, and they come back and come around for another pass.
Waves, and
shoot. And it's just you're sort of waiting a lot. And sometimes you get things where, like, they didn't turn right and the enemy turned a different way, so they don't really get an angle, and that pass doesn't matter. Yeah. And there's moments where you're just like, just shoot them, please.
I felt that way playing RTS games a lot.
And micromanaging doesn't really. There's little things you can do. Like, they encourage you to take cover behind asteroids, and like that does matter. You can put them behind things and they won't get hit, and they can get the drop on them. If there's holes in asteroids, you can fly them through the rocks to get cover that way, and you can actually kind of sneak up on things sometimes. Huh. But yeah, it's fairly straightforward.
It looks very dull, Matt.
It kind of is. Yeah. Because you don't have a lot.
Very exciting.
You don't have a lot of fine control over these things, so you're basically sending these squadrons out to do these things, and the mothership just sort of sits there.
Just sits there. Yeah.
A lot of times, what's happening is you have to accomplish some objective, and so far, like, the main thing has been like mothership is doing a thing and you have to defend it, or like. You have to do like 3 different things at once, and so you have to split your forces into groups that you think can handle each task, and you kind of gotta hope that they can figure it out on their own in the time it takes you to jump from one to the other. Right. Now you can pause the game to like basically freeze it, jump to everybody, tell them exactly what.
That's very helpful in an RTS.
And then restart it.
Think. Yeah.
This is I imagine that is not possible in multiplayer. There is full multiplayer on this. I haven't played any multiplayer because I already know the outcome of that. I'm not going to win.
I wouldn't even think about it.
No.
So how do you feel overall? Like, how much is the game?
I think it's full 60.
Okay.
I actually got this because my brother-in-law accidentally bought an extra collector's edition and just gave me the code.
Oh.
Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have.
You wouldn't have bought it yourself?
I wouldn't have bought this myself. I know I'm not going to play a ton of this.
Yeah, I was a little disappointed in its aggregate scores. Again, it's on my fantasy team. It's it's a high 7. Does that seem about right to you?
Probably. I mean, it's a mix, I think, of like people who are just not RTS, people not being won over by it, and people who are Homeworld fans feeling like it goes a little too far astray in terms of tone and story, and sort of what it's very different and not really in a good way. And the art style just doesn't. I don't understand the point of the change, because like it doesn't feel like it's cheaper. You know, I guess maybe it is cheaper to not do the painterly kind of oil painting style in full 3D, because that was But there's a lot of moments, especially if you go like look up on YouTube like the deserts of I forgot the name.
Kharkov or whatever it was.
Of Karak. Look up go look up the cutscenes of that, and there's some really nice.
Is that your brother-in-law, Lambent Regret, right there?
Yes, apparently.
Awesome. You built him one hell of a computer, man. What amazing work.
And like
every time I come here, I go look at games on his PC that you built. It's incredible.
No, it was not Kali. I gotta look that up.
Okay.
But yeah, it's it doesn't look it's not like
so many years in the making.
Yeah, it just doesn't. I mean, it's such a unique style, and it's so identified with the series, especially after 4 in the desert game, that like it just seemed weird. Or 2 in the desert game. It's weird that they went with this. It doesn't. Yeah. I would never know that's Homeworld if you told until I saw the flat mothership's kind of a giveaway. Yeah. But even that, like the mothership always seemed to kind of travel vertically. You know, that was sort of a trademark because you could be up or down or wherever you want. Yeah. And like I always think of the vertical mothership in this game, and this one just sort of flies like a big B1, you know, big flying wing. And it not that Homeworld had a ton of personality to lose, but like it does seem like it's lost
some still.
What little it had, and that's a shame.
Yeah.
Music's nice.
Yeah.
Visuals are nice.
Yeah.
But they're kind of in service to something that doesn't really. I mean, I got bored after a while and just started playing Mad Max. I switched off this pretty fast.
And keep in mind, neither one of us are huge.
Yeah, I'm not an RTS person. I don't have the patience for that. I think
what we're saying is that if you're like us and you're casual RTS players,
yeah, this is not going to change your mind. It's not going to capture you.
This is not the one.
This is no. I mean, you got Sins of a Solar Empire 2 coming soon, which is probably more. Yeah, that's more a real-time 4X, really. Yeah. But that's the one that I mean, Sins of a Solar Empire is the one strategy game that is always installed on my computer. I play that pretty regularly. That and the Dawn of War game.
Civilization is one I always have installed. I just never know when I want to just play it for a while. And then once I start playing, whoosh, off it goes. So there you go. That's Homeworld 3, only available for PC. You think they'll ever release it for consoles?
I can't imagine why.
Yeah, I don't think it would make sense. Yeah, although they are pushing really hard to make mouse and keyboard available for both PlayStation 5
True.
and
This
Xbox
would be
Series
tough. The controls are a little weird in default, but you have a class because like you don't orbit the ships anymore. You kind of like you almost have to do like a first person shooter, like to like rotate around a ship. You have to kind of push to like move left or right with the keyboard, and then hold the right mouse button and scan around. And like just switch to classic mode. Just switch back to the original control. It was fine. It was fine the way it was.
Yeah. All right. Well, there you go. That's Homeworld 3 available for PC. Matt probably only recommend it for hardcore RTS players.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine if you're a hardcore Homeworld person, you already have this and are probably mildly disappointed by it. So.
Yeah. All right. Well, unfortunately, that's going to do it for GameFace episode 389. I know I said I was going to bring back Name That Game with screenshots, and I actually do have it ready, and we've got it here, but we are just simply out of time. I err on the side of talking about games more than playing Name That Game. If you'd rather play Name That Game than have Matt and I talk about games, leave that in the comments below. We are supported 100% pretty much at patreon.com/SIFTD. If you like the show, you want to see it continue, please head on over there. You can pledge $4 a month and get all our content early. You get Pachter Factor a week early, which is a huge gap for Patreons. There's other ways you can help us if you don't have money. If you're watching on YouTube right now, make sure you like the show. Make sure you leave a comment, even if it's just like Shane and Matt are awesome, favorite gaming podcast, whatever. Just take a second. That makes a difference. It all ties into the algorithm. And if you do have Amazon Prime, you can help us out with Twitch Prime. Again, if you're watching on YouTube, go below into the description. There are step-by-step instructions down there. You have to link your accounts first. You never have to do it again. After you've linked your accounts, it literally takes 3 seconds to give us $2.50 every month. Again, you have to renew it every month, which is really annoying. I'm still not 100% sure why Twitch won't let you just set it up to auto-renew. But you do have to do it every month, so you haven't done that for a while.
Probably because they want you to re-engage with it every month.
Yeah, because they want, exactly. I know why. But it's just a pain in the ass. Yeah. It really is. Thanks to everybody in chat. You guys have been awesome as usual. Set us straight on the fast travel. Well, actually, you set us straight on the fast travel. Or did somebody mention it in chat and then you looked it up? Is that what happened?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So thanks for setting us straight. You guys are great fact checkers live, so we don't have to come back next week and say, oh, we screwed this up, and here's all the stuff that we screwed up. We really appreciate it. Everything you guys do, you guys just make it better being on our chat. And I will make sure we have enough time next week for Name That Game when it comes back. And also don't forget that next week we kick off our Not E3 coverage as well, and we'll be detailing that next Tuesday here on GameFace with Matt before he takes off for his little vacay. And I think that's pretty much it. Hope you guys have a great week filled with great games. June's a little light, so you might want to pick some of your favorites from May and take the dive now that we've talked about them here on GameFace, and it's something that struck your fancy. And you're like, I'm sitting on the sideline. You might want to dive in and buy that game and give it a go this week, and I hope that you do, and you have a ton of fun doing it. So we'll see you guys next Tuesday right here at twitch.tv/SiftedGames. Until then, have an awesome week. GameFace is up and out.